Lite, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Smith Tool and Purchase, Level Plain Poem, Amish, Vitali Z, Colton James, BG, Survive the Spin, FE Patriot on the level, Thomas van der Zander, Gary Hughes, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Sea Level Cultist, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, the name's Burley, Twodwazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMels24, Unamento, M, Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKinnon, Retro Bill, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, Chow Yun Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links to Patreon are below this video. But with that, I'm going to hand across to whoever is in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server and G+, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Right. Got a message from Soyez, so I contacted that Russian microphone manufacturer to say, can I have a demo? Because one of their videos suggested that they liked giving demos. I'm like, well, it'd be nice to know if it actually did serve my purpose before I purchased it. And as their offer in the facility, I have no issue giving them a credit card and temporarily borrowing it and seeing if it's good. But in the meantime, as I've probably mentioned several times, I've ordered 2 second-hand mics that should have come today. That's what the tracking information told me when they first started tracking it. Then it's changed, and now it's saying it's stuck at the sorting office, which is very irritating, so they're not coming today. Or at least it doesn't seem like they are. There we go. Hopefully one of them will turn out to be my forever mic. We will see.
They were good looking mics.
Well, they're all very different. So what I'm using now is a low bar pattern, I think you call it, shotgun mic, which is very, very directional. It's like a thin beam that comes out the front of it, but also the back and sides are very thin beam. So it's got lots of rejection, but also it does pick up to the sides and to the back, which isn't so good. The one that's on order's subcardioid, which isn't quite omnidirectional, but isn't quite a cardioid. And then one of them's a cardioid. And then the one that I've asked for from Soyez, I've asked them to send me a hypercardioid, which is the one I think I need. But we'll see. I've tried I think it's called a supercardioid from Neumann, or Neumann, as they say. But it was a handheld mic, which really didn't suit my needs. But it gave me an idea of whether or not I wanted that Neumann sound, which everybody loves, except me. So I played my wife a sample yesterday of a guy that had recorded a recording with something that's akin to an old-fashioned style microphone. So lots of warmth and all that sort of good stuff, or good stuff to me. And then he compared it to what I would consider a very modern microphone. And I played them both to my wife, and she's like, I like the first one, which was the super modern mic. I'm like, oh, fair enough. A lot of people like that modern kind of sound, but I don't want it. I don't think it sounds good on my voice particularly. So I want something that's a bit more old-fashioned. That's what I've gone for. We'll see if I'm right.
When is it coming? Did you get it yet?
The idea
No,
is you
annoyingly, didn't come. Still at the sorting office.
idea is you borrow it from them and then you do an advertisement.
Say again. Will I do an advertisement? No, I'm just a customer. So
The borrowing part.
Yeah, I'm
like,
just borrowing it. So the manufacturer said that they get in touch with the UK rep, or UK distributor, sorry, and ask them to contact me about borrowing one. So they will loan me one. And if I like it, I'll buy one. And if I don't, I'll send it back and say, no, thank you, it wasn't suitable for my needs.
Sounds like a good deal.
I got you.
Well, it is because it's several £100 new. It's like a £600+ microphone, which is, I don't know, $800. A lot of money. So if I'm going to invest in it, number one, I'd have to flog all of my other microphones that I've acquired. Admittedly, most of them secondhand and cheap. But at least one of them, the one I'm using now, is genuinely an expensive microphone. It was about £500 when I bought it, and I saved and saved and saved and saved to get it. Well, I've done it very similar, saved some money to be buying this particular piece of equipment. In other words, it was on the list, and you're like, yeah, it's right down the list after a lot of other things like acoustic treatment, for the show, that is. But now all that's done, it's like, well, that is now the thing on the list to buy, which is the right microphone. I just happen to like the sound of this microphone, but it isn't the right microphone for this particular environment. So the fact that I like the sound of it has served me okay until now. It's like, well, now I actually do know what I'm doing because I've been doing it for 10 years and I kind of know what I want out of the microphone. So I'm prepared to spend a bit more money on it because I'll probably use it for another 10 years. Yeah, so I'm quite excited to see which one will be the right one. I've bought a variety of different polar patterns to figure out which one works best. Fortunately, I've managed to get several of them very cheap, very old, very second-hand, but they work. So it's like the concern, obviously, when you do that is that you get it and it doesn't serve its purpose because it doesn't function. Whereas if it just arrives, doesn't matter how tatty it is, as long as it works, I can say, yeah, I like this or I don't. Or it works or it doesn't. But yeah, the first thing I'm going to try...
Well, we know you like audio.
Pardon?
I was going to say, we know you like audio, and it's a podcast, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I do pay just as much attention to how you guys sound. I mean, I'm leveling you up every time we're in a server. I'm always leveling up the people in the server to try and make their audio equal to everybody else's. It's difficult. It's more difficult to level you guys up in G+, actually, because there's no control over it.
Yeah, I do need to get a pair of headphones.
Why?
Because at least then it'd be, steady.
Steady? What are you talking about? I've got monitors. Much better than
I
headphones.
don't know. I'm like,
How do you think I'm
I'm
listening to
holding the
you?
phone in front of my, I'm holding the phone in front of my face, but then sometimes I'm holding the phone this far in front of my face, and I don't know how it sounds.
No. I'm on monitors. My monitoring setup's probably... If you were to buy what I have to listen to you guys on, you'd spend 10 grand on it. My monitoring setup is perfect. Literally. Partially reason why behind treat in the room isn't just so I'm sounding good on the recording, it's so I can hear really clearly what's going on. Yeah, nothing wrong with my monitors. I'm very happy with that side. I've been happy with that for 20 years, 25 years. I got this monitoring set up in 1999, and it's never changed. The amplifiers have changed and become cheaper and better over time. So 20 years ago, really good amplifiers were still quite expensive. Now, they're cheap as chips. But the speakers...
Show always sounded pretty good.
Speakers are really expensive now. So I looked up what the modern equivalent... They still make the speakers that I use. And when I bought them, I was a dealer. And because they'd just come out, and they knew that they would be keeping those particular designs for a really long time, they'd spent a huge amount of money on them. I remember talking to one of the designers, and he was explaining that they're not going to make their money back on these designs for quite a number of years. And this was back in the 90s, right? Well, obviously we are 25 years later, or more, and obviously they're making their money on it still because that design's still being used. It's just been subtly refined over that time. And by refined, I mean made cheaper so they can make more money off it. But initially, they wanted as many dealers as possible to have those speakers actually in their houses using them, because obviously that works really well. If you've got a dealer that, what do you use, Mr. Dealer? Well, I use these at home. And they're like, well, I want them if they're good enough for you to buy. So I got them stupidly cheap. They were still really expensive, but stupidly cheap compared to the retail price, which at the time was £2,000 or £3,000. Now they're 10 grand. Just the speakers.
Things aren't getting cheaper.
Not at all. And I can understand why in this particular instance. Many speakers, I just look at them and when they show the price tag of stupid money, I just go, why? There's no justifiable reason for that. In the case of these particular speakers, they're made a bit like a piano with curved veneers. So you can appreciate how they, and I've seen the process being done, how they actually bend the veneers and steam the veneers and heat them up so that they're malleable and then put them in a press. You know, it isn't an easy process to veneer a speaker with a curve to it, like a piano isn't easy to veneer either, a grand piano. So I can understand and appreciate why they cost more money, which is why I was prepared to put my money into them, because I'm like, okay, fine. At this point, you've invested heavily in R&D, and the actual manufacturing process is obviously expensive. Therefore, I don't mind giving you a fairly large sum of money for this particular item, because I can see the value in it. I can see the worth and the work and the research. So that's when I'm quite fussy if I'm going to part with money. It's either got to be one or two things. It's either got to be the absolute best that there is, so that it'll last 20 years, or throw away, like just completely disposable. And the products that fit in between those two categories are iPhones. They are possibly the worst possible type of product you can purchase. Middle of the road. Yeah, it's not built like a tank. It barely will survive if a drop. It'll smash its own screen, right? So it's not exactly made well, but it's not cheap, right? It's not pennies, it's not pounds, it's not dollars. It's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, yeah? But it's not designed to last more than a few years. Then it's not only either knackered, physically not working, or not up to date enough to function. So you're like, well, it's the worst of every single world then, isn't it? Massively depreciating, hugely expensive, seriously fragile, not worth repairing. Phones are awful.
So headphones or no headphones?
I hate headphones.
Okay.
My wife used to distribute headphones, and she and I both came to the conclusion that we hate headphones. Right, hun? Mm-hmm. She said, mm-hmm. Now, if this was a subcardioid, you'd have heard her say, mm-hmm. But it's not, it's low bar or shotgun, so you didn't hear her. So I'm going from, right, so when I do get this mic, which will inevitably be tomorrow, not this show, right? As I say, I'm going from a polar pattern that if I move off axis, you can really tell. I'll show you. This is me talking off axis. This is me talking on axis. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I didn't move much off axis, a few inches. Yeah? Because this is like a laser beam. If I'm not directly talking into the front of the capsule, then it doesn't pick me up well. Now, that was done for a reason, because I had partially treated room when I got it. So I'm like, it's treated enough to not have horrible phasey reflections going into it, but it means that I can just focus the pickup on my chair rather than it picking up all the ambience of the room. And it served me quite well. But now, it's like I don't need a shotgun mic with an interference tube because the room's completely treated. So I'm going from that with a really narrow pickup pattern to one that's almost 180 degrees. So either side of the mic, I could move all the way off, anywhere off axis, and it would pick me up. And my wife sat on the other side of the room, it'd probably pick her up too. So
what do you mean the room is treated?
What do I mean by the room is treated? I mean, sort of 30 or 40% of the surface in this room is covered in like insulation material in a bag that's then covered in a wood panel with holes in it. So they're 2 foot by 4 foot panels that are filled with building insulation and then covered with a breathable fabric so that sound waves can travel past the fabric into the building insulation and be absorbed. So they're called velocity absorbers. They absorb sound velocity. Yeah.
Very cool. Also,
there's pressure absorbers, which are slightly different, which are like a drum, which are behind me. So I've got 2 very, very large boxes that have got a membrane on the front. And all they do is vibrate at a sympathetic frequency that I want to get rid of. So in this case, 40 hertz. So a 40 hertz tone in this room makes the whole room shake and boom and it's horrible. So if that tone comes, I can't hear anything else other than that tone. So to tame that, I've got a different type of absorber that works instead of on velocity, i.e. when the air moves, it works on pressure, i.e. when the molecule of air physically presses on a surface, i.e. pressure. Well, it works on that. So when the air pressurizes the wall, in this case a membrane next to the wall, that vibrates at the same frequency, taking that tone out of the air, if you will, so you don't hear it, or you hear it less. Yeah, the whole room's like that. If you see my daughter's live stream, so my daughter's started doing live streams, and she does it from the centre of the room on the table in the middle of the room. I don't. I work from the corner because I need to access things, but she doesn't. She's got a laptop, so she can sit right in the middle of the room. And if you see on her stream, she's kind of got the camera angled up to the ceiling, and you can see the whole room. And it looks like, well, the whole room's covered. Well, no, it isn't. It's about 35% of the surface area. But that's a lot. You know, that's a huge amount. It's probably 100 panels. A lot of treatment.
Again, we appreciate it.
People don't appreciate good sound. They just don't like bad sound. So nobody will ever say, oh, good sound on your show, Nathan. Wonderful. What they do is go, like Neil does it quite frequently. I went back to one of your old shows and it sounded awful. You're like, right. So he's not telling me the show sounds great, although he is in a way. He's just noticing the difference between something that you wouldn't notice or mention versus something that you do notice and is displeasing. So a lot of podcasts I hear, they drive me mad and I have to tune them out because the sound's horrendous. They've paid absolutely no consideration to it whatsoever. And it sounds awful. And I'll just be like, well, I'm not going to listen. This is offensive to my ears. There's one guy, I can't remember, I won't name him shame because I can't remember his name, but he does like horror stories and true crime stories. It's massive. He's got several million subscribers.
Nightmind?
Pardon?
Is it Nightmind?
No. Anyway, this guy's a completely untreated space. So it's really reverberant. And it's basically, to me, unlistenable. And I look at this sub count and go, my God, it's like, how'd you get away with this? Like, you must be earning tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars off that channel. Can't you spend a couple of grand on a few acoustic panels? Bloody hell. Yeah. I'll start showing you this stuff once it comes, because I'm very excited about it. I was hoping to be doing that exactly now. Like going, check out this new mic, it looks awesome.
Another day.
Yeah, it'll be tomorrow. Oh well.
I looked at that video I think Adam might have posted in Master B. I didn't watch it because I fell asleep. But my weaknesses at the moment that I notice are gas, mass, and gravity. So if I had a vote, I'd say we could look at that maybe.
Okay, but it's from Iron Realm Media.
I'm not sure what that means, to be honest.
Well, Adam used to be part of Iron Realm Media before Bob came and poisoned the well.
Correct.
I'm just interested why
YouTube
Adam would share
channel.
it. I'm tempted to actually clarify with him before, because I said to him, he sent the message, right? Gravity is not a force video, which is what I've just had up on screen. And then underneath it says 5 years ago. And then underneath it says wanker, question mark. I'm like, oh, and then no response. So I've asked him, worth covering today, question mark. No response. And then I've started posting pictures of my kids with Stitch and bouncing. Presumably supposed to be going to my wife. I'll put me in Master B. Anyway. Well, we'll cover it. We'll find out from Adam later. Or, so you say, did you watch it? You said you watched it, but you fell asleep. That's not really helpful information.
You know, I didn't get to watch it. I fell asleep now.
Well, thanks for telling me. Really helpful.
No, it was my bad. But yeah, I noticed that the more we talk about gas and its behaviors and stuff, and the more we talk about mass, I'm more confused I get about mass, and then gravity obviously comes from that.
I see. Well, we'll have a watch. If it wasn't intended to be watched on a live stream, he shouldn't have shared it in Master B. Adam, that is. The other Adam.
Yeah.
At least we've got a video to cover, I guess.
Like every time the housekeeping question comes around, I like part of me wants to pipe up and be like, "What do you accept for this? What are we answering for this?"
Gas pressure without containment.
Yeah.
That's what we'll accept. A demonstration of gas pressure without containment.
Can you do me a favour, Neil?
Yes.
Tomorrow, if I do get these new mics, can you remind me to get rid of my EQ? That is to say, if I do change the mic and I say, "Hey, I've got a great new mic," just say, "Oh, did you turn off your EQ?" Because on this mic, I've
Yes.
put a high shelf and low pass filter on, and a high pass filter for that matter. But I won't leave. I'll leave that on. But certainly the high shelf and low pass, I need to turn those off. Because otherwise, I wonder what the mic sounds like. You know what I mean?
Turn off EQ. Got it.
Yeah, just remind me, because I will forget.
Like steel trap Neil.
It's one of them. I'll do it. I'll plug it up because I'll be all excited, and then I'll forget to, remove what I've done to this mic on my output stage, and it'll get recorded, and I'll go back and listen to it, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's a bit bright," forgetting that I've not turned off the EQ or left it flat initially, so I can at least get an idea of how it sounds through all my compressors and stuff, and then start figuring out how I'll make changes. If I like it at all, I might just turn it on and go, "Oh, that sounds horrible."
What are you confused about with gas pressure, Adam?
Oh, nothing. It'd be pretty much the hard part for me is where I had come in to the subject years ago, and I was like, does gas have mass? And I believe Google's answer is gas has mass, but no set weight. And then I think to myself, okay, well, isn't mass almost pretty much weight?
No.
Define mass.
No.
What's
Weight,
mass?
No. Weight is your definition of stuff moving through air in a downward direction. So that convention has no use for you when you're describing air, because part of that convention has things moving in a downward direction through air, doesn't it? For weight.
Okay, so that's weight. Weight
Right. So if you melt an ice cube, you melt an ice cube, you put it in your kettle and you boil it. You appreciate that there's still stuff there, right? But it's then less dense than the air. I mean, it's part of the air, but overall, water vapor's obviously going to make its way up to the clouds. That's its natural tendency because it's less dense than the rest of the substance of the air, so it'll displace it. But it still has physicality. It's still stuff. But mass has no definition. If you're going to describe how much of something it has, you could use mole, and often they'll try and hijack that when they say mass. Or if you ask them to define it, they'll describe inertia. Or define inertia. And you're like, that's not mass, that's inertia. Or they'll describe how much stuff there is in a given amount of something, which is mole. So there is no mass. But how much stuff, mole. Just look up mole. MOL. Yeah, everything has a relative density to any other medium that it's going to be in without exception. Everything's always going to be in a medium of some description or other. Doesn't matter if it's water or air, but doesn't mean that the medium is suddenly undefinable or uncomprehendable because we've got other conventions that we've ascribed, like weight, that sit outside parameters that air could be described with. Would we describe air with? Pressure.
Then you get into the whole thing. What is weight?
Yeah, part threw me too. I'm looking at the mole definition. So, molecular weight of a substance expressed in grams. And grams to me is weight.
Where'd you get that definition
So
from?
mole is weight.
No.
I got it right. I asked, what is it? What is the meaning of mole? Definitions of mole: the molecular weight of a substance expressed in grams, the basic unit of amount of substance adopted under the System International. The unit. Synonyms: gram, molecule, mole, weight unit, metric weight unit.
So the SI base unit for the amount of substance. Mole, MOLE.
Oh, I did not do the E.
Well, it's as a noun, it's MOL, but yeah, fine. Either way, that's what it means. And it's specifically tied to a certain amount of a certain thing, which I'm not too clear. It changed when QE started to tell me about this stuff, so it always became quite confusing. Just have a quick look. The base unit of an amount of pure substance in the internal system of units that is defined as having exactly 6.0221407 times 10 to the 23 indivisible units such as atoms or molecules of that substance. There you go. Point being, that's not mass. That's mole.
Yeah, I know they are definitely using things interchangeably. I think the one I did trip on last time was the inertia.
Yeah, that's not mass either, though, is it? But that's what they'll use. They'll define inertia.
Like, I can tell when they're trying to trick me, but there's places, especially in the gas and the mass and the gravity, that I definitely, the whole point of this is to almost like have the answers at the ready. And sometimes, they're just like, what's mass? But that's my question.
Oh, look, the bottom line is this: no matter what it is, there has never been a demonstration of gas not being contained, and that's the end of the game right there. You can't demonstrate it. Blue Marble Science tried to do some retarded demonstration using how many containers? Two or three?
Yeah.
At least two, right? So you're never gonna get it needs containment. That's it. It's in the definition.
I understand.
And by the way, Elon Musk is going to Mars. Actually, he's going to rescue the two astronauts that have been lost in space under the Biden administration. Well, this is like, I'll tell you, if you sit there and watch that, because I'm sitting there saying maybe it is true. I mean, it's space. There might be guys up there because they're talking like it's so true that there's two guys lost in space. And then I got to remind myself that that can't happen because that area does not exist.
It's your own Star Wars.
unless they're being like really like MK Ultra, I don't freaking know. But yeah, he's talking about his rockets that land back in place. So yeah, he's going to Mars. He wants to go on Mars, and that's going to be the new BS, I guess.
The moon is over.
Well, they seem to think that these lights in the sky are, like Nathan says, soil, and they go around each other magically, orbiting.
It's still a nice story. It's still a fun story to think about. Like, I know that it's completely asinine, but at the same time, it's pretty.
It's eloquent. It is. I've said that before, and so has Nathan. It's not no ragtag story. This is eloquent.
What's that from?
That's from Neil Cosentino. That's not a movie quote.
Beautiful.
I just realized that Kiwi's hard pipe hitting and get medieval on your, you know what, comes from. I didn't even realize it came from Pulp Fiction.
Oh, did you not?
No, I knew it was a movie. I was confusing Pulp Fiction with Kill Bill. I guess because the actress.
Uma Thurman.
Correct. So, and I just realized another thing. Vincent's dead, right? In that movie?
Yeah. Travolta, yeah.
Yeah, he gets killed by
Well,
Butch.
that sucks because he was down playing a miracle.
Okay.
I mean, down plan.
What was that?
I said, what about the downplaying?
He was down playing a miracle where the guy shot through the door and none of them got hit.
Yeah.
Remember?
And okay, and Julius was like, oh, this was okay. I got you. I'm trying to remember if Julius died in that movie now.
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
think so either.
No. No, he walks off at the end at the junkyard where the guy who's cleaned out their car sort of bids farewell to them in attire that's like volleyball game or something like that, and that leads into the first scene where they hold up the restaurant. So that's where they are in the first scene, right?
Honey Bunny.
Yeah, but then later on, as the movie progresses, you find out that Vincent's gonna die, but that's in a flash forward. So yeah, the end of the movie is the middle of the movie.
Yeah, crazy movie, but good.
I'm sitting here trying not to be like, oh, I love Tarantino.
I think the best was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the way he did that story.
I like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. My favorite by him is probably Hateful Eight. Just because it's so quotable, it's so easily watchable. to me to just sit there and let them talk to each other. And I like his dialogue, and I like that. But I do find that I watch Inglorious Bastards more for some reason.
Yeah, but once upon a time in Hollywood, they rewrite the Sharon Tate story, which would have been great if it happened that way, right? But instead, it wasn't. It was horrific what happened.
No flamethrower?
That was hysterical.
Yeah, like Inglorious
That
at the
dog is
end.
great.
Go ahead.
His dog is great in that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just gives the signal, and it was on from there. And you were on a horsey because he was really tripping. Yeah, I thought that was a good flick.
He wrote a novel version of that. It's pretty good. It's it's pretty much the movie, but it's fleshed out. It's pretty decent.
A lot of people say that whole thing was, just um, set up in a way to end the hippie movement.
Yeah. No, I remember the end of Inglorious where they get Hitler and whatnot. And I remember being in that theater and not expecting that to happen and just busting out laughing. I could not stop myself. It was a horrible scene to be laughing at, but I remember just being so surprised that would happen in a movie. And Django, too. I watched Django a lot when it came out.
Yeah, I'm tired of the propaganda movies, to be honest.
Yeah, I hear that. No, I hear that a lot. I get that a lot because, I'm always trying to watch a movie in the background and I never get through it. But yeah, there's a lot of crap that comes out to just lead you to a thought, and I don't like that.
I just want the truth, damn it. They went over that whole Atlantic slave trade thing. Said it would have took 6,000 years just to freaking build the ships that they used, supposedly, to get all those slaves from the certain part of Africa to here. Guy does a whole thing on it. The journey took 2 years, he says. So he's not decrying that there wasn't any slave trade, but what they're saying is astronomical.
It does make some good stories though.
Yeah, until you find out their stories. Like I was in school and I had to watch Roots. It was something that we had to watch, and we watched them all. You find out years later that it was a bunch of bullshit. Excuse the language.
Same here. Had to do it. Everyone had to watch Roots.
And then they made us watch the other fearmonger show the day after, right? Because it was nuclear war. It was a TV show called The Day After coming out, and we had to watch it.
I did not see that one.
Google it. It's called The Day After. I think it took place in 1978 or 9.
Steve Gutenberg. Did I say Gutenberg?
No, you said it right, Steve Gutenberg. That was pretty cool. The end of that show, those numpties coming in yesterday on Nathan's show. If that could happen once a day, it would be good.
Remind me.
When the baller came in, when you were trying to make the exit, and the baller came out of left field, caused us to spend another 15 minutes there. I don't remember what it was about. I just know that there was a baller. I was working. I couldn't really get involved.
What was the argument about, though? I can't remember, Neil. You have to remind me.
Every time you were trying to explain to him, well, he was you were trying to explain to him the measurements, and he just wasn't having it, and he kept talking through you. That's why I came in. I said he's just not listening because he's looking. He's waiting to speak to the point where he's just speaking while you're speaking.
I have to listen back. I did listen to the live show yesterday. It was a good show on the live show, so I did go back and listen to it after the fact. I haven't listened to the Uncut and After show, though, so I can't really remember.
Yeah, it was on a live show because the Uncut and After show, we were already gone from politics, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was good. Very good when you can take somebody apart like that.
It's even better when you can forget about it when it's over.
Well, it's like they think they got an upper hand of sort because they're like, the whole world knows it's a sphere. That's it. You're an idiot, flat earther. That was the other guy that came in, too. Earth's a sphere, therefore sphere. It's measured a sphere, therefore it's a sphere. You dumb flat earther.
There's only so many kinds of glober, really. I guess that's why I kind of got so annoyed about, finally like unhiding all the faces that I've hidden in the last few months, and then being like, all right, fine, I'll get back in the arena. And then first thing he's asking is like, does gas have masks? I'm like, oh man, come on. And I forgot even to ask, what's masks? Because at that point I was already
That's what they're
humoring.
trying. No, but that's what they're trying to trip you up. You just say, look, is there every evidence you can have gas pressure without containment? They're trying to bring gas in a downward vector, and you know that don't happen.
Well, it's in the definition.
I don't give a shit. They got gravity. The definition, my brother does air conditioning. That doesn't mean that gravity is real because they put it in the definition. You're going to find that a lot of the words that they use are nothing burgers. You got to see through it all. The same thing with celestial navigation. 10th man says, look, you gotta read and see where the bullshit is. When they're telling you that they're measuring straight level and then they're putting it on a globe, you know something's wrong.
Morning.
Good morning. We do actually have a video to cover today. So Adam Meekins shared a video from Iron Realm, which is his old haunt. So it's a bit weird that he shared a video about that specific channel, but we'll see what it is after we do a few housekeeping questions, just to keep our hand in. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Negative.
What about P waves and S waves? I do remember some of yesterday.
Waving from what?
Guy came in and claimed seismology proved a spherical Earth until we pointed out that you need a horizontal plane of reference for seismology.
Yeah, that was later. That was the brother man.
Right. What about any evidence of the R value, Earth radius? As that was what was being claimed with P waves
Well,
and S
that's
waves.
the proof right there.
What, P waves and S waves? Oh, you're reiterating the circular reasoning used by the same dude. No, it's a different dude. Good show yesterday. Check out yesterday's show, 2284, I believe the number was. Unless that's today's show's number. Is it today's show number? No, 2285 today. Yeah, 2284. Go and check it out. We went into politics unannounced, and those can be hit and miss. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not. But yesterday was particularly good in the respect that we got a lot done. We talked to a lot of fundies. There was a lot of muting and over talking from the fundies that didn't like their corrections coming their way. But generally speaking, a lot of people find that sort of thing entertaining. Not me. I find it tedious.
No, you were entertaining doing the Rastafari, doing that accent back in. It was almost as good as the time with Akumu virus.
He's not. Akumu virus doesn't have a Rastafarian accent.
No, but you had that. Why are you trying to make proof flat Earth? That whole routine. The Jamaican accent is almost as good.
I'm not a terrible mimic. I can do it all right. I'd have never made a stage performer doing it. Anyway, please share the show if you haven't done so already. We'll go through a couple more housekeeping questions and we'll move on to the Iron Realm video about gravity. Speaking of which, any scientific evidence of gravity?
What gravity? It's just a word.
It's not my claim. I don't have to answer this, Neil. What about any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Negative, but you do have a lot of naturally observed phenomenon.
Well, yeah, that's fine. As long as they formulate it into a hypothesis and then actualise said hypothesis with an experiment to validate the cause of their effect that they observed. They may have numerous effects, that's wonderful. But have they got any scientific evidence that would be validated?
No, because you won't be able to put it through the experimentation. How would you do that? How would you vary and manipulate a star or the sun or the moon?
Not my problem, not my claim. I'm not claiming to be able to science the stars, am I? I mean, they do. Or they did here before we pointed out that they need scientific evidence to adhere to the scientific method as a standard, and they haven't got that. Then they stopped suggesting that they got science for their claims. It's quite some time ago now. It's probably more like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it used to be the whole body of science.
In fact, it's more than that, isn't it? At the end of yesterday's show, while we were doing the outro, if you will, on the tail end of yesterday's after show, QE started playing a show from a long time ago, right? About 7 or 8 years ago. And even then, after QE asked for comment, so he played it through and then was like, what's anybody got to say about that, which was us 7 or 8 years ago? And my comment to QE was, check out the level of consistency in terms of what we're doing. So the only thing that slipped by, if refracted curvature was here, I'd decorate him for this because it's him that drew this to my attention in recent times. But the utilisation of a horizontal plane of reference to describe a geometric sphere edge horizon below surface level was literally asserted in almost those exact words, almost verbatim, by Zanuck. Yeah? Now, it slipped me and everyone else by at the time, 7 or 8 years ago. But with that exception, with only that exception, everything else was as it was and as it would be today in discussion. Slight caveat being I was a lot more tolerant and patient 7 years ago than I am now. Confidence thing, probably. But other than that, it was completely in line with what we do today, wasn't it, Neil?
Yes, it was. And that was from the beginning. We walked right by it like we were blind until our eyes were open to it. Then we realized, hold on a second, let's backtrack here. You're not going to be giving us a flat Earth. You have to because Earth is flat.
Yeah. Over the years, you tend to find that a theme develops throughout the year as it rattles on. And we've named a lot of those years based on the things that we've discussed or been detailing within the period of time, right? Well, this year we're like back to basics. We're talking about science and the scientific method because lots of people have been duped with the final experiment. But the sentiment from yesterday, that really has resonated with me. I know it wasn't me that was putting it out there, but for whatever reason, that came out of me yesterday. Don't use our stuff. Stop asserting that you're going to measure a flat Earth and then use that measurement to assert you're on a ball. Right? It's not going to be tolerated anymore. And I think that's going to be more of the theme of this year than back to basics. That will be the overarching theme that I'll intend to deliver. But upon discussing the subject of nature of Earth with anybody else from this point forth, the second they start utilising flat plane measurements, I'm going to stop them and get annoyed with them because it's stereotype fallacy coming. Generally the case that they'll ridicule and mock us as flat earthers and then go on to use our flat earth measurements. So given that they will typically mock us for being idiotic, the moment they use our measurements, they're going to get both barrels, as much fury as I can possibly muster. Because for 10 years we've been called stupid for knowing Earth is flat, and yet they call us stupid but use a flat Earth measurement to justify their globe belief. Not anymore. Stop using our stuff. Stop using flat Earth measurements to claim your ball.
Dude, it's like going out, jump in your car to go to the store to buy some whatever you need, and somebody's got your car. Right?
Yeah.
They can't use our stuff. And you know what? Even if they ask, they're not allowed to use any of our stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying ask first before you use our stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying don't use our stuff. And if you do, you'll get it in the neck. You want to believe you're on a ball, that's your business. And I'm all for tolerance and acceptance and allowing people to have their beliefs. More power to you, believe you're on a ball. The second you start measuring a flat Earth, though, no, that's got nothing to do with your ball belief anymore. You believe the surface is curving. Now, I know that the origin of the measurements that gave you that idea to reify came from the flat Earth measurements. I don't care. You actually think they're real. You're not just utilising them to better predict where the stars will be. That's not your purpose. You actually think the surface is curving. Therefore, that supersedes, by reification, any actual measurement that you can appeal to when you believe the surface is actually curving. Like us, if you were to disclaim, well, Copernicus's model utilising flat Earth angles and putting the world in motion at the centre with you in hell moving around the sun by mathematical description, can have its practical uses. But it doesn't mean we're standing on a spherical surface. That's absurd. But the moment you tell me we are, then you don't get to use those flat Earth measurements. Not at all.
I was just going to say, you did so good by using the word idea instead of model.
Yeah, Neil's a regular, so you can tell when I'm hesitating because the word model's on the tip of my tongue and I stop myself and then find a different word mentally for a second. Probably only half a second. It's half a beat I miss and Neil's picked up on it. In that timbre, or tone, or whatever, rhythm, that's the one. There was half a beat missing when I paused to find a different word. Very perceptive, Neil.
But then you went on to say Copernicus's model. I guess if you're what's the word I'm looking for?
No, I can get away with that because that's how it's labelled.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. If you're using it because of him, that's fine. But we're not using it.
No. But then again, if QE was here, it'd be like, no, you shouldn't use that standard. In the same way as you wouldn't call Michelson-Morley an experiment. And if someone came along and said, well, that's just the title of it.
Copernicus's idea. That would sound retarded.
Well, it is his idea.
You have to use a model.
No, it's just an idea, mathematical idea. Very out-of-the-box thinking when you study what it actually means to be heliocentric. You're describing your worldview from the centre of hell moving around the sun. Why? So you can have a flat plane to actually tally with the measurements of Earth. with the angles that you measured to create that system. But metaphorically and reified by globe believers to the surface of a ball that doesn't exist, that's actually described from a plane within a ball that's been created mathematically. That you're not standing on, you're in the maths of Copernicus. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
The only way to measure that is from a flat plane.
Oh, yeah. What's the distance to the sun, then, if you can measure it off a flat plane?
I'm not sure what the distance would be, but I know that you'd have to be on a flat plane to measure to it.
We do measure to it, but we're not getting distance.
Yeah, altitude in celestial navigation is not a height at all, but an angle from level, which is flat.
Yeah. But any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Well, they have a said claim of 93 million miles, although that changes.
Well, you can slide that scale any way you like. It's currently being given a standard by Huygens, assuming that Venus has the same radial value as Earth, hence the term Earth's twin. Well, no, assuming it's got the same radius doesn't mean that you can scale everything with the Keplerian model, as Neil objects to me calling it. But yeah, that mathematics can be scaled at any value based on assumption, in this case Venus being the same size as Earth when assumed to be a sphere, when deriving said radial value to turn spherically from a circular radial value derived from minimum elevation angle measurements to Polaris, the latitude grid. Still flat Earth basis for the origin for Copernicus and Huygens.
What was the word they used of his assumption? It was a what type of assumption?
Ingenious.
Huh.
Ingenious assumption is how it's described. I don't actually have that article. It was always Anthony Riley that dug it out. "66 people watching. Please share the show if you've not done so already." We'll do a few more housekeeping questions. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
No.
Black Swan.
The Black Swan changed the game. It really did.
Took away their numbers.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Axial from what?
Flat plane. That's how the axis would be described.
That's what I figured.
Okay, any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement as described in this picture on screen now from hell? From a curved baseline?
No, you cannot get an angle from a curve. It would not be an angle anymore.
Elevation is from level. It's in the word.
Any evidence you can have pitch data on a globe?
Pitch from horizontal?
Yeah.
No, you'll use the horizontal as Earth.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure, like we're all breathing, without a container to press upon?
Nope, it's in the definition. Pressure needs containment.
I think we actually covered all of the housekeeping questions, did we not?
We got them all, baby.
Right, so we have actually got a video to cover. So Adam hasn't responded in case he was sending this for an irony or for some other reason, but I have no idea why we're covering this, to be honest. So anybody got any idea why Adam would have sent this? Is gravity a force? Academia answers. Have a look. Silence at the moment.
People. Now, there is a couple other things that Stephen Moore had issues with. You wrote another article called What is Space-Time? And in it, you say a year earlier, talking about Einstein, a year earlier, he had formulated his general theory of relativity, which postulates that gravity is not a force that
Oh, it's this. This is George Musa.
propagates through space, but a feature of space-time itself. Again, I see that as the same misunderstanding as the snapping of the one thing.
What is happening in this is Craig is trying to mitigate for the fact that this man on the right, George Musa, editor of Scientific American, made it explicitly clear that gravity is not a force.
The fact that you've said postulates that gravity is not a force, and I think that confuses him. So could you just clarify that particular phrase for me?
So gravity is not a force. When one is trying to understand why gravity operates in the universe, why there is a tendency of objects to attract one another, to orbit around one another.
I mean, it's just disclaimed that it's not a force. So this nonsense waffle after the fact is kind of irrelevant. He's just said gravity is not a force. Then he paused. Could have been an edit from Craig. Who knows? Who cares?
Which is a type of, really comes from the attraction. Why bodies pull themselves together into spherical shapes.
Do they? When? Show me. Oh, you're just going to beg the question of gravitational accretion, superseded by the Einsteinian bent space-time that you're supposed to be justifying in the question.
For example, or discs type shapes in other systems.
No, they don't. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I want to see this. You can't just say they pull together and make spherical objects in the sky, and all of a sudden there's soil. You gotta have some evidence of that.
So why does that all happen? Then the idea of gravity as a force in the Newtonian sense of a kind of almost undefined entity that grabs things across space, that force concept becomes a problem.
Oh, fair enough. I spoke too soon. So he's shattering these illusions of force-based gravity with his disclaimers of what it is, but he's semi-accurately describing it in Newtonian context. I just didn't realise. It's been a while since I've watched this.
When you're trying to understand why gravity works, the fact that gravity does work, it's obvious from everything around us. And
is that your standard? Gravity doesn't do any work. It's a mathematical convention invented by Einstein with a pseudo geometry to back it. So when you say work, what, like people digging holes and things, like physically working? No, gravity doesn't do any work at all.
Maybe I should put it this way. When describing the workings of gravity, you shouldn't use force concepts. When you describe
in other words, it's not doing anything. It's got no force. So the workings, you mean like Weasley describing how mathematically it works? That's not physically happening because there's no force.
Effects of gravity, yes, use force concepts. You're perfectly entitled to speak of gravity as a force when you're working through its implications, when you're working through why things fall, why things move.
Like the clouds there, Musa. So when I'm looking at why the clouds fall, would I look at gravity as a force, would I? Oh no, it all falls to pieces immediately, doesn't it?
Move in the way they do.
Up, away from the ground, like a force pulling it to the ground? No, it's going away from the ground.
Okay.
It's only when you start to get into the deep questions, and those are the ones, of course, I was dealing with in that particular article. In other articles, I'm perfectly happy to describe, and I do describe gravity as a force, as I do describe electrical forces or strong force or things like this. Even though, depending on context, I might not use the force terminology.
That actually answers it very well. It's the fact that you use the phrase which postulates that gravity is not a force that propagates through space-time. He focuses on the words there that gravity is not a force, and
he's talking about Anthony Riley, isn't he? When he says he
kind of ignores the rest of the context. So
yeah, I think that's fair.
Having you.
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, that.
There goes our quote.
Let's just say that again. Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Oh, thanks, George. Yeah, thanks. You, George Musa, can think of the world as a roast chicken. You have my permission.
That's kind of what I've tried to explain to him, is that having you...
Seemed like a pretty severe edit.
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've tried to explain to him, is that having you...
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've tried to explain to him, is that having you...
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Maybe that's the best way of putting it.
Yeah, you can. I'll give you permission too, Craig. You can think of it as a force. It isn't one. But you can. You got our permission too. You can think of it as one. Bless your little corn socks. I'll ruffle your head, send you on your way thinking about the world being a giant roast chicken. You can think of it as a roast chicken if you want to. Right, I think we're done. Well, wasn't that fun? A blast from the past from George Musa. Oh, lovely. Did we all enjoy that?
Yeah, he gave us that famous quote. I love it.
Yep.
So you can think of it as a force in Newtonian, but when you get to Einsteinian, it's all mathematical.
Right, it's a pseudo-geometry in Einsteinian. Or I should say, Einsteinian gravity is a pseudo-geometry.
So you're saying a sham geometry.
Yeah. That's why there's so much ambiguity. Now I understand why Adam put the comment underneath that he did. So we've been watching some videos from about 3 or 4 years ago where the participants of the video are describing their double-speak nonsense, irritating behaviour. And then at the end of the 1 minute section of video, they explain that they've been wankers for a couple of years, or they've been wankers for 3 years. And Adam dug out George Musa describing gravity not being a force, but you can think of it as a force, and then wrote underneath, wankers? Question mark. Now I know why. Very good.
The theory of gravity keeps falling down because it doesn't hold up.
Not a theory.
That meaning one of the chat, I thought that was pretty cool. The theory of gravity keeps falling down because it doesn't hold up.
But I was hoping to be showing a new microphone that I got on camera today. But unfortunately, the postman's not been, and I've not got it. So I'm slightly heartbroken that I can't be doing that for today's show, because that was kind of what I'd got planned to do. So now that we've covered that very short video, we're half an hour into the show, just under, and yeah, I've run out of things to do now because I haven't got a mic to talk about. Well, 2 mics actually. I mean, I could still talk about Sawyers, I suppose. I did discuss this in the pre-show, but I'll mention it again for my live audience. So if you've been following along as a member, you might probably not that interesting to most of my audience, but for some there is a mild amount of interest in the audio reproduction of this show. And one of the things that I'd contacted a manufacturer about was a small diaphragm condenser mic that actually has a large diaphragm, as weird as that may sound, but quite expensive. So I've asked them if they'll loan me one. That is to say, if I can borrow it, try it, see if it actually serves my needs as well as I hoped it would, after looking into what I actually desire, and then finding something for several £100s and going, oh, bloody hell, that's a lot of money. About the same as I spent on the mic I've got now, and this one has served me for about the last 5 or 6 years. So it's been a very, very good mic in respect to how long it's lasted, and, you know, that's good. But now I want to buy a different one. Now that the room's all treated, and it was previously very low on the priority lists, but now I do want to buy a more realistic mic that's not massive and smacking me in the face every time I stand up in the chair, and weird in terms of how it works because it's got a load of interference tube slits on it. So yeah, that's a mic that I'll also show in a couple of weeks when I do get in touch with the rep from Sawyers UK, or whoever their distributor is in the UK. Apparently they've had my information passed on to them, and yeah, they'll send me a box with a mic in it that I can have a fiddle with without having to necessarily pay for it, although I'll have to presumably give them a credit card to borrow it. But aside from that, yeah, I'll get to try a really expensive mic in comparison to a couple of mics I bought on eBay for, maybe 50 quid. But very, very old. Both of them are about 15 to 20 years old, but very, very different. So I've been trying all sorts of different mics to figure out what I can best use in this space now that it's completely finished, and has been for quite some time, actually. But yeah, I haven't got to be spending my Patreon money, which is typically what I'll do in this regard when it comes to spending money on the show. That's what I'll spend, where the revenue comes from, at least. So if you are one of my patrons, you're familiar with me putting various boring stuff about mold in the house or dehumidifiers, if that's what I'm doing at the time, because as much as it's also a living space for 3 other people, 4 including me, the space is the same space. So if there is something going on like that, I'll still put it on my Patreon to let them know what's going on. But it's kind of a bit of a crossover with my family life, in the respect that the same space is used for my family, but it does literally turn into a studio each day. So the family get kicked out of this particular space. The lights, the camera, the mics, the preamps, they all come out of storage, and it gets turned into a studio. The door gets shut, show begins. But it does mean that I've got a proper studio, so I can now, compared to the treatment of the room, spend a lot less money, relatively speaking. So compared to panels, bearing in mind there's about 100 panels in this room, and they range in price from maybe $5 or $10 all the way up to $500 per box. And there's, like I say, about 100 of them. And over the course of many, many years, I've treated this space so that, number one, I can hear what's being said, and number two, what I'm saying is as clear as possible for the audience. And along that road, I've also learned how to slightly alter, to a very limited degree, the sound of the participants in Discord and the participants in G+. So again, that they're at the very least a similar level to each other, so you're not suddenly blasted out by somebody. It might occasionally happen, but normally I address it pretty quickly. So yeah, it's just technical stuff about the show that's happening at the moment, because I'm actually looking to invest a bit more money into the show. Not that I've ever stopped investing money back into the show. It's pretty much all I ever spend money on, in fact. I don't think I ever, in the last 10 years, have spent any money on myself particularly, per se. It's always been on, reinvesting into making this a better show. So in regards to sound, it's not necessarily something that anybody's going to praise me for. It's normally subtle improvements that hardly anybody's going to notice except me. But overall, the incremental improvements over time, you'd notice if you went back to a really old show like Neil's done. You go back and listen to how it sounded back then and go, oh, wow, it does sound considerably more professional now. You're like, yeah, each little change I make isn't necessarily going to make an immediate, obvious difference to everybody, but the little incremental changes, like everything in audio, add up, and each one is expensive and takes time. So yeah, there you go. There's my little update on microphones. I'll show you what I get when I get it. So if you're a Patreon, I might put it out in a Patreon video, or if you're a member, I might do a live stream or something like that. And I'll just show you what I've been fiddling around with, and albeit with very little money to do it with, I've managed to achieve an ability to try all sorts of different microphones in this space that are completely different. Like, not just different shapes of the mics themselves, but completely different polar patterns, completely different what they call capsule sizes, diaphragm types, you name it. I've picked a very wide variety of different stuff to fiddle with to see which one will stay in here for the next 5 to 10 years, like the one that I've got now, this shotgun mic. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to fiddle with, and hopefully it will make an improvement to me, which is all it's really about, making me sound better. So there we go. That's mics. I'll show you when they come, and show you when Sawyer's hopefully get in touch or tell you.
So Nathan, you say that where you do this show from, your house, your flat,
Yes.
that you turn it into a studio and then break it down and turn it back into an apartment. How many grips do you got there working with you?
How many what?
Grips.
No grips.
Like you
Grips
do it
is-
all yourself, so you're the
grips-
grip too. You do everything. You take
grips
it
is-
down, set it up.
Grips is lighting.
Well, who's the guys that set up everything? What are they called?
Oh no, I suppose
the
there are
gap?
different types of grips. I'm thinking a key grip. Key grips are lighting. The key is lighting, isn't it? No, I don't have any grips. There's no runners. There's
You're
no
the
nothing.
only
There's
grip
me.
there, huh?
Just me. I just pull it all out, right? A lot of it's on arms. So I've engineered a lot of the show to be capable of being swung out into position from a fixed position. So the mic and the camera are both on like a boom arm. One's a low profile arm, the other's like a scissor arm. Same with the monitor. So even the monitor gets put away. So I need a second monitor. So I power up the one, which is fixed because it's a projector, and the other one I pull out from the wall and swivel towards my position, and it blocks a certain amount of light from the camera and a certain amount of light spill from one of my studio lights that I also pull out. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. It takes me about 20 minutes to set up the show each day. But that's just setting up the room. But I tend to get about, I don't know, 1/3 of the way through to a skeleton, and then I'll do an intro. Because sometimes you'll miss people having an argument in one of the servers because you've failed to set up the show completely and failed to do an intro, and then you join and someone's having a full-on discussion like, oh no, I've got to do an intro, and it's like, no, I'll just get it to the bare bones of the show, do an intro, and then I'll carry on setting up the rest of it, you know, getting everything laid out how I want it and all the rest of it, the chat and things like that.
So it's not just pushing buttons. Okay, a grip is a technical crew member responsible for setting up and maintaining the equipment that supports cameras, including tripods, dollies, tracks, cranes, and jibs. Essentially, ensuring the camera can be positioned exactly as the director needs it. Well, you're the only director here, so yeah, that's pretty cool. You do all of that yourself. So there's a lot of work that's involved. It's not just pushing a button and showtime.
Yeah, we decided that Robert guy from yesterday was just a wanker, didn't we? Yeah,
yes,
we're not going to tolerate wankers anymore on the show.
wankers.
Just in case anyone was wondering, why were you talking about Musa and saying wankers? Well, because we're sick of it, right? We're sick of wankers joining. So I haven't had a chance to speak to Righteous about banning this idiot. Keeps joining.
Yeah, well, there was two of them, Nathan. There was one that came on right before we left politics, and then there was the guy that came on our server, well, Righteous server, the Jamaican guy.
Yeah, I'm just going to have him banned. I'm going to tell him now as well. I'll move him out one last time, but I'll tell him. Dude, you're going to be banned. Robert, I'm going to have you banned. You're a wanker. Get lost. Don't even want to hear your response. Get lost. Yeah, I don't want to suffer these idiots anymore. If you come in, rumpus the crap out of you for 10 attempts, and then when you finally get the actual point across to them unimpeded, they ignore it so much and then say, oh, well, now that we've measured the radius. You're like, oh, you disingenuous scumbag, never return. There's no point in having discussions with that person at all. Because what they're going to do, concede your point when you win? No. They'll leave a short pause and then reiterate their losing point after rumpusing the crap out of you 10 times, getting on your last nerve. Piss off, never return to my show. If you want to come here and be a wanker, I'm just going to ban you from now on. I don't know if Sputs or maybe I've been doing this 10 years. Do you think I need you wankers? No, I don't. Get lost. Why is Righteous not around? Can somebody inform Righteous to ban Robert v. Utah permanently so he never returns and has to darken our door with his wanker behaviour ever again? Yeah? I don't know how to do it. I've never actually banned somebody, so I don't actually know how to do it.
All right, I know there's a mod in Discord. Ban the guy.
Is there a mod in Discord? I don't know if there is. Well, in any event, you can stay in here till I get in touch with Righteous. But I'm in complete agreement with Adam. Like, we don't suffer fools gladly anymore here. Right? Now, as far as I'm concerned, I've earned the right to do that. No, I don't want to suffer you. You're a wanker. You're never going to concede my point. All you're going to do is try and wind me up by talking through it. And when you hear it, you won't acknowledge it. You won't refute it or challenge it or debate it. You'll reassert your losing position. Yeah, that's not worthy of our time. It's like, get lost.
And trust me, their vocabulary is planned that way because they want to say, now that we've established gravity or now that we've established the radius, they're doing that for a reason. So why deal with them?
Yeah. If you're genuine and you're here to debate the subject, then fine. But after you've proven yourself a wanker, that's it. No, I've got one chance, no more. One. Oh, I was just pretending. I was just doing it because don't care. Yeah? Have some humility, be humble. The amount of times I get caught out doing something wrong and I have to eat humble pie and disclaim to an audience of people how wrong I was and make it really painfully obvious that I've accepted it. That's the standards I have to be held to. Yet these arseholes come into the show and they will not be held to task on anything and will interrupt and descend the show into as much chaos as they can possibly cause, only to just reassert their globe faith at the end of the process. Like, these people have no value. That was the original person to be banned on that context or whatever standard was Rumpus. We do have a geometric horizon. Oh, well, we don't have a geometric horizon. It only exists in the maths. We do have a geometric horizon. At that point, get lost. You understand you're wrong and you'll concede you're wrong, but then you'll reiterate the point that's wrong in the affirmative 2 minutes later. No, you just don't have our time. You don't get our ear. You don't get to talk to us. Go away. Deceive other people, not me. So yeah, let this be known. If you join the show and you turn out to be a wanker, we'll just ban you. Don't be a wanker and you won't get banned.
Yeah, a lot of them, what they're doing is that definition that you give, the sustainable by design. They're claiming that we're saying that there's a line, that we really think that there's a line. Obviously, we're talking about the Earth, right?
The plane of reference. All heights.
And what is that, Nathan?
Earth.
That's it. End the story. Earth is flat.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. We're measuring Earth as a plane of reference. So deal with it. You don't have that if you're on a globe. You need it to be that way to measure Earth in any way, shape or form. You're going to describe how high or low a mountain is? You're going to describe it with respect to that plane of reference.
Exactly. We're not saying Earth is a line. That's not what we said.
Oh no, that's idiots that don't understand Earth as topology. That can be described with respect to the plane of reference and how high or low it is with respect to that plane of reference that Earth is. If it wasn't, you couldn't describe how high or low mountains and valleys were in feet and inches with respect to sea level as an average. For the whole world. Level. No, we understand that there's topology.
Yeah, and at the end of that, it says the observer is standing on. So, I mean, you're being disingenuous purposely. You know exactly what we're talking about. You know exactly what that definition says. You just don't want to accept it.
Does anyone know where Righteous actually is? He hasn't been around for ages, or at least a week. Are you a moderator in here, Mush?
Hey, just 1 second, Nathan.
Okie okay.
Yes. What do you need Righteous for? He's around, bro.
But he's just not here this second. I just don't know how to. I've never
what
banned anybody.
Maybe I can read.
I've never banned anybody from the server, and I don't know how to do it.
Oh, so that's what you, dude. I told you a million times you can ban anybody you want.
I don't
from
know
your
how
show
to.
specifically.
I don't know how to. I looked on the
What do you
list,
mean?
and there isn't a button that says
Click.
ban.
Just click on their with the right click on the mouse.
Yeah.
Click on their name. Go down to their roles, and you'll see all the roles are there. Just click show ban NO. That's the name of the tag.
I've got Globe Earth,
Show ban
Christian,
and
Bible, and Vacuum.
Oh, that's all you got? No,
Yeah.
you should have a power to ban anybody from your show. Who do you want banned right now?
The Robert guy.
Robert?
Oh, I do have
okay.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
so private
Yeah, you do,
VC.
man.
I see. So, oh no, I've only got 4 roles. Yeah.
Only 4?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do it, man.
Thanks.
You should have it that you can ban anybody from your show. You and QE.
Yeah, I've never had the
But no
need
worries,
to.
man. Yeah,
I've always been able to appeal to one of the mods, and to be honest, I don't really want to be able to because I'd be doing it left, right, and centre. It's good that there's a buffer.
So this Robert, you don't want him here, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
guy's
I don't
proven
blame
to
you,
be a
man.
wanker,
I
so
don't
let's
blame
just get rid of him. I just don't.
Oh, yeah.
Why get you'll get a second chance and all that kind of crap. That's the last
No,
time we did that. It was with a Kumu virus. Do you remember?
Yeah, he's here too. Well, he's done from the show. We know that.
Yeah.
But he came back to the server, but he's definitely not getting back on your show. No worries about that. But Robert is pretty new, so and yes, he had plenty of chances, and he doesn't deserve to be here, man.
Yeah,
Do
it's a
you
waste
want to
of
give
time.
him one more opportunity?
No, man. I mean, well, that Nathan's call, but whatever.
It's Adam's call,
Regis is
actually.
here, by the way.
I'm not being usurped by Adam in any shape, but I'm just suggesting we do that based on what Adam and I had as a sentiment yesterday. After it was because of something very specific that he did. So we got to the point where, yeah, I can tolerate people rumpusing me. They don't like hearing it, and I accept that. I'm not just going to ban people because they're like, I feel the need to talk through you because this is painful. No, that's part of the show. I get it. But at the point that you have actually heard what we've got to put to you, and we've fought tooth and nail to get you to listen to it, and you've heard it, and you haven't, for whatever reason, we've managed to get you under such control that you can actually keep your ears open long enough to hear the point that's being put to you. And in the face of that, your response is to just say, we've got the radius of Earth as a sphere. Because that's what he did. You're just like, no, get lost, never come back, you're a wanker.
Yes, I agree. He's insufferable, and yeah, he's
Well,
You
I
got it,
was
man.
just saying
Righteous is
that
here, by the way.
because he is. Sorry, Mush. I was just saying that because he is new. We've only heard him a couple of times. If we could give him one more opportunity,
It's
and
not
then
worth it,
ban him?
Neil. It's not worth
I
it,
agree,
Neil.
it's
I've
not
heard
worth
him
it.
plenty of times.
I'm
It's
saying
not
give
worth
them
it, trust me.
one chance. And as soon as they show themselves to be a wanker, get lost is my attitude. No, I don't want to suffer fools gladly. You're asking me to do exactly that, Neil.
No. I'm just saying because I never seen him before. He just came in the other day. But that's
Well,
fine.
I'm
I
telling you,
follow
Neil.
along with you.
I'm telling you, Neil. Nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna change, man.
Oh, you spoke to him
He's done it
before. Okay, I got you.
many times. Not just myself, but many people.
But we can stereotype that
Does-
type, can't we, Mush? He's that type, isn't he?
He is that type, yeah. Acum virus type, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just here because he wants to troll, he's having fun. It doesn't matter if he concedes, loses, wins. So long as he gets us irritated, it's great amusement for him. Get
Exactly,
lost is my
exactly.
attitude. Get lost. You're not here to debate the subject. You're here to wind us up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear the Butterman accent one more time.
No.
Yeah, and by the way, Righteous is here, so I don't know if Righteous wants to hear the whole thing all over again, but we already spoke about it, and yeah, he's not going to be on the show anymore. He's gone.
It's because for the audience's benefit, right? This is not my server. I have limited control over it. I have a say, and people value my opinion here, but it's not mine. I have no involvement in running the server. It is entirely, almost entirely, obviously there's mods, down to Righteous, who's here now. And I'm suggesting, or we have already, ban somebody as a statement. Righteous.
Hello, Nathan. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's not complicated. If Nathan wants somebody off the show, we can just give him the show, Nathan Oakley show ban, and it's really that simple.
Perfect. That's it. That's perfect because it's not banning them from the server. It's banning them from this show, which is what I would hope that could be done, and that is the case. Great. That's even better. But yeah, basically, what's the word? It's that's the word. With utilising that guy as an example, that Robert guy. He's unfortunate for him. No, you've fell in the unfortunate position of having the standard set with you. No, we're not going to suffer this intolerable behaviour anymore where you just come to take the piss and you don't listen. And in the face of anything being put to you, you'll turn around and reassert your nonsense waffle by begging the question fallacy in the face of a 15th attempt to put something to you. No acknowledgement, no rebuttal, no discussion, no debate, just a reassertion of the garbage that was asserted initially. So those people aren't worth our time. And therefore this Robert guy was the last guy to do it. So therefore he's been show banned. And if you're going to behave like that, Adam's sentiment yesterday was, no, we shouldn't tolerate these wankers. So just ban them immediately. Why deal with them? And if people go, oh, you're a bit harsh, all I did was behave like a total wanker once. Yeah, that's all you get.
If you remember, he came over, opened his mic, and said he just got banned from 24/7 politics. And now we know why he got banned from 24/7 politics. So you're going to come here and act the same way? You're going to get banned everywhere.
Yeah, wind-up merchants. They aren't interested in expanding their knowledge of the surface of Earth, which is what we discuss here. They're interested in reasserting their garbage about it being a sphere in the face of anything that they hear. Hopefully, that can cause a lot of interruption while it's trying to be attempted to appeal to them. So why are we giving this to them? Why are we throwing our pearls to swine?
Good morning, guys.
Hello, chocolate. So very exciting tomorrow. I know there's a lot of you that have been bated breath waiting for me to show you these new microphones, but unfortunately that will have to wait till tomorrow. I know there's a lot of disappointment. Don't leave it in the comments. I don't want to hear it. I know there's a lot of disappointment. I can just feel the vibe. Nobody cares. I care. I want to show them, and I will. Tomorrow.
I care, but I do care that the ballers don't come in anymore, so I can get back to my old form and say, let's get it on. But
people who are sincere about being a baller don't want to be shown to be disingenuous and insincere when they're caught out by us. So the genuine ballers don't want to come. Because what's going to happen when I demonstrate that they are utilising a flat plane? They'll lose their minds, yeah? Just go and look at Toon screaming my name into the snow. That's the net result of being told that you're measuring a flat Earth. They don't want that. None of them want that, Neil. The only people who will come here are the wankers.
You're not deflecting to measurements, are you now, Nathan?
He tried to deflect to measurements. What, your measurements of an Earth that's flat, Toon? Yeah, I did, didn't I?
He took those same measurements to Brian, too, and held them up right there on camera.
Yeah, waving them in Brian's face as Brian says, yeah, you've got flat Earth measurements on there. They're angles. You measured a flat Earth. By their own standards at TFE, right, they scientifically validated Earth to be a flat plane because I predicted that they'd go down there and measure it flat, and they absolutely came back and confirmed my prediction. Now, that isn't science, but it's their standard of crappy science. So by their own crappy standard of what they call science, which it isn't, Earth was demonstrably scientifically validated to be flat. I say tongue-in-cheek. Met my prediction. 100 people watching. Woohoo! Please share the show if you've not done so already. Very warm welcome to all of you who've joined the show. There's a good chance the only reason we've got 100 people watching is because people in the live stream chat have actually shared the show. So thank you very much for sharing the show. If you've not done so already, please share the show. It's only 2 clicks, and you can stick it on your favourite outlet, Bebo, MySpace, whatever it is you use, it'll be in that list. So click on the share button, click, click, click. Hopefully we'll dig out something else to cover tomorrow. I didn't think that video from Adam would be as short as it was. It was only 3 or 4 minutes long with Moosa on it. We had very little to get our teeth in case anybody's wondering why I'm rambling on a little bit about how many people are watching towards the end of this live stream. There was 2 things that didn't happen. The video wasn't very long, and I didn't get the mics that I thought I would. So we were about 50 minutes in, and I'm like, what are we going to do now? Talk about the show tomorrow? Hopefully tomorrow we'll have a really good show. Mush will have provided a video. Everyone will be in a good mood. Are we doing the book tonight, Neil? We are, aren't we? I'm sure Adam said Wednesday.
I hope so.
Book's creeping ever closer. That'll be an actual turning point, won't it? When things start actually happening that are new, like new visits to new places to promote the book. Whereas for the now, it's kind of everything's kind of, I don't want to say stale, but there's a stale something about now till the book's done because it's so close to the end. I could just hear, no, it's not. It's going to be another 20 years.
No, it's not. It's not. Within the next 3 or 4 months, I'd say.
3 or 4 months? Get lost. Oh, shut up, Neil. You're just trying to piss me off, aren't you?
It's coming. Once it gets in Flatsy's hands to do all the grammatical things, that book is going to hit. And let me tell you something. It's going to change the face of flat earth debate.
Did any of the racial stuff that we talked about yesterday get onto the recording, or was that after I finished?
I'm not sure.
I think it was after you finished.
Oh, what a shame.
That was after.
Oh, that's a shame. Oh, well. Well, we can't recreate that magic again. Hey ho. We'll see how today's after show goes. How are you, Eli?
Pretty good. What's up, guys?
Sky. Obviously. Yeah, it's just disappointment. I was expecting the postman to come in and he didn't. So I'm slightly sad. On the upside, Russian manufacturer contacted me via email this morning to say I might get a loaner mic. So happy days. See how that goes.
That's good.
Yeah, I can see you're all very excited.
I kind of just woke up.
Are you going to dig us out something for tomorrow, Mush? Something to cover? Got a reputation now.
Nathan, I can try, bro, but I don't want to go into any details right now. But like, it's really stressful time in my life right now, with as far as some family members, and I'm trying to be here for them. And like I said, I don't want to go into details, but it's really bad. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm sorry to hear
so
that.
I'm not even. I shouldn't even. Yeah, thank you, bro. I shouldn't even be on Discord, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Doing things signed in, listening. Yeah.
I will try not to lean on you then in that case. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anything, any help you need?
Hope it gets better, brother.
Yeah, indeed.
No, man. I appreciate you guys. No, it's just crazy shit. I mean, I can talk about it, but I'm not taking time right now.
No, fair enough.
On the show, it's just horrible things. Yeah, man. Thank you, guys.
No worries. Shout out to V. Darley. He says, I've tried talking to Robert before. He's not willing to listen. He's just waiting for his turn to talk. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Thank you for the super chat.
Who's Robert?
A guy I banned. I want to make an example of what's going on at the moment because it's the third time it's happened in the space of 2 or 3 days.
It's a dead man.
Yeah, I just perma-banned him. I'm
Oh,
like, no, don't want to deal with
fellow
that.
Islander from yesterday. That's what you're talking about?
You can't perma-ban me, Nathan. I can get in on any name, you know. I'm not him.
I know
I'm not him.
No, I know when somebody's putting on a terrible Jamaican accent. No, it's just been held up as an example. It's like, no, get lost. If you're going to behave like that, don't bother coming. You'll just get perma-banned immediately. Because what's the point? My purpose in here is to appeal to the audience. Now, if you're going to selfishly mess around, which is all that is, it's just messing around, then you're depriving an entire audience of the information. Now, there's 100-odd people who want to listen to this. Now, if you just want to ignore it and make it difficult to listen to, then you're not of benefit to this show. Like Rumpus, right? They reached a point where Rumpus stopped being useful. It's like, well, what's the point? If I can't put my hand on my heart and say, I am actually an educational channel. If you look at the bottom of this video in terms of how I've categorized it, it's categorized as education. Now, people say, oh, we really like listening to Rumpus. It was really amusing. It was entertaining. No, I don't care. It stopped being educational at the point that we do have a geometric horizon. Well, we don't have a geometric horizon. It's only in the maths. We do have a geometric horizon. No. You no longer have any place here at this table. Go away. You're not going to help the audience. You're going to confuse them. That's not fair. So, yeah. These people live in La La Land. They want to fantasize about being on a ball in our presence. And there's a certain type that don't come here anymore, anti-flat earthers, that just need us to be part of the consensus and would rather we just disappeared, in some case died. Yeah, that's how strongly they feel about it. They're not interested in correcting us because they know damn well what will happen if they try to. We'll be correcting them and showing them how they use a flat earth. Now, that's a fate worse than death to them. So they're just not going to come. But the people who are impervious to that, they don't care. Oh, they're indifferent to the being on a ball bit, but they know it winds us up when we're trying to educate an audience on how Earth is measured flat to hear how ball-shaped it's assumed to be by them. Go on, plain decoded, unless you just got a phone call and have been pushed off mute by the server.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That'll be a yes.
I didn't know it does that.
Yeah, it does. When people get phone calls, it knocks them off mute in the server. It's like they want you to be hot micing. You're having a row with your wife.
No, she was calling me about some yogurt. I actually have some questions for you later, but I'm a little bit busy
That was
right
just a guess. I didn't actually hear the conversation. It was just a pure guess. Yogurt. Okay, fair enough. My wife and I, it's normally pizza admin. Got the oven on? Did you get the pizza? Go on then, what's your question? We will never know. Oh,
He
what
said
a shame.
he wanted to ask you a question, but he can't get to it now, I think.
Oh, I missed that bit. I rumpused him. Fair enough. We might find out in the after show. So, yeah, you can all wait with bated breath for another 24 hours to see my new microphones.
I was going to ask, in the UK, is that how it works? Does it work the same way with a car? Can you call a dealership and say, hey, can I use the car for a day?
No, it normally only works that way with something that's, what's the word? Like the opposite of something consumable. That's what's the word? Like luxury items, luxury goods. Yeah. So back when I sold electronics, the cheapest box we had was like $2,000. So if you want somebody to buy a £10,000 piece of equipment, there's a good chance that you're going to be willing to lend it to them, because no matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you're a big expensive studio and you've got perceivably to me a lot of money, that guy doesn't want to spend 10 grand on anything, so you've got to actually convince them. So the best way to do that is to lend somebody something. Well, in the case of a microphone, you're talking about something that's a few inches in size and costs several £100s. In other words, it's relatively easy to ship around. And there's a good chance that the person who wants to buy that item wants to buy it. They're just hesitant, and therefore when they get it and go, oh yeah, it's really nice. But it's a luxury item, right? In other words, it's really easy to just say, actually, I don't need that item, so I'll move on with my day. So keeping in touch with a customer that's shown an interest and lending it them, there's a good chance that'll turn into a sale. That's how I used to operate, at least. The whole part of being a rep was mostly doing that. You're going out and saying, of course you need our product. This is what it's like. And you link it all together, make it sound glorious, and hope a customer walks in and goes, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Where can I buy it? Here, if they become a dealer. You know what I mean? So, yeah, loaning stuff out's not that uncommon with luxury items, which I think you could definitely consider a £600 microphone to be. So some of the ones that I'm getting would be that way, right? So it's crazy because in the scheme of people who talk about microphones, because I've been watching a lot of microphone videos, right? A microphone that cost £150 20 years ago is the equivalent to about 300 quid these days, which if I said a £300 mic to most people, they'd gasp and go, oh my God, that's a lot of money. But to the guy that's doing voiceover work, who uses his favourite U87 AI that costs £3,000 from Neumann, they look at a 300 quid mic and scoff. You're like, well, why? Because it's made in China. Okay, but what difference does it make? It's doing the same thing. So from one perspective, people look down on some of the equipment that I've managed to get for maybe 30 or 40 or 50 quid, right? Because it's only the equivalent of maybe something that costs £300 or £400 today. But I look at it the other way. I'm like, to my audience, when you look at some of these things that I'll put on screen tomorrow, hopefully, fingers crossed, These things cost several £100s. The fact that I maybe only paid 50 quid for it is irrelevant. It's like if you bought a modern equivalent of these things that I'll show you that are all shiny, you'd be spending maybe £400 or £500 on them. Like I'm intending to do if I do buy a new one. But it might be the case that I don't actually have to, that I end up with a second-hand one that actually satisfies my needs. I doubt it, but you can hope. But yeah, so I'll show you these shiny things that somebody, not me, at some point... I remember bartering with the guy over the one that I'm quite excited that might actually serve my purpose. And he was saying, I paid 280 quid for that. I'm like, yeah, you did 10 years ago. So what? I don't care. I want it for cheap. I want to pay you next to nothing. I want to play with it. So I don't want to pay £300 or £400 for it. No, thank you. But I'll pay you 50 quid. Anyway, so yeah, there'll be new shiny things that at some point cost somebody lots and lots of money and potentially might lead me in the direction of actually spending several £100s myself on something for the show. So it's all intriguing to me. If you're interested in it, then you'll be fascinated and on the edge of your seat like I am. If you're not, you'll be tuning out. But I'll try and keep it brief. I'll put it on camera for a few moments on the live show tomorrow if it does actually arrive, give you a brief explanation of what it does, and hopefully you'll hear a difference because it's at the other end of the extremes in terms of microphones. I'm done. I'll say no more on the subject. Shout out to Vlad on 0 degrees. Can't wait to hear about that mic, lol. Why is it that I can detect sarcasm even in a super chat? It's a gift, I'm telling you. Thank you for the super chat though, Vlad. Really appreciate the support. Mush. Right, any more before we round out and ask everyone to stay tuned for the after show? We got there in the end, even without what I thought we would be doing today. Okay, no other comments? Okie dokie. With that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Highlight of today's show was the guy pretending to be the Rasta, saying, I can get in on any account. That was great. Was that Ned? Props. He's off mute, but obviously not anywhere near his mic.
I think that Robert really did sound like a virus, and I don't know why. I didn't want to, feel like that, but I have a feeling they're the same person.
Nah, definitely not. They didn't sound alike. Well, I didn't think they sounded alike.
Sorry, Nate. My phone wouldn't let me press the button. Someone pushed to talk on my iPhone, but yeah, he did introduce quite a bit. That guy, he's quite funny with his Rastafarian voice.
Yeah, and quirky people with interesting accents are great if they're not disingenuous.
Either way, stop taking our stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, stop using our bleeding stuff. Right, I'm going to get a coffee. We'll see how the conversation goes. We'll probably round out shortly because I do need to get a snooze in before we do book editing. I've had a lot on my plate recently. So I'm tired. So I want to snooze. So depending on how well the conversation goes where I'll get a coffee will depend on how long we stay recording. I like your comment, just before I do this, be a divergent droid. I liked your comment in the chat. If you don't hear a difference, get better headphones. There's a good chance nobody will notice anything, right? In fact, if I've done a good job up until now, you shouldn't really hear any difference. It'll be really subtle. Anyway, I'm going to get coffee. Oh, I got a note.
So what's up, everybody?
So just as literally I sat down, out for delivery. Oh, I might get this mic today. Out for delivery. It's out for delivery today. Expected at 2:49. Oh, is that now? Oh, that's when it updated me. Yeah, I'll get this mic today. Happy days. Happy days.
Yay. So what's up, everybody?
going on, man?
Not much, not much. We went over the gravity thing today for a minute, and that that'll help. Right now, that's what I'm kind of focusing on is what gas does and what they think mass is, and then how they equate that to equal out to some magical force. So I've just been keeping my ears open.
It's not a force even in their own story. So why they would consider it a force is weird.
I guess it's just that saying, that force of gravity, and that's enough to keep them enthralled.
I've had to run in immediately. I didn't think there would be that much dead air. Right, maybe my coffee can wait. I'll have to round up sooner than I thought. My mics will be
I could ask a question.
next 3 hours, because you're all excited. Before 20 past 6, it says. Between now and 6:19 p.m. 3 hours.
Hey, Nathan?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, plain decoded. We hear you beautifully.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to ask why, when you guys are talking about the distance to the sun and like the so-called guide to figure it out, why do you go to Christian Huygens right away? Why is he the one that you guys speak of?
Because he gives them their distance to their sun in the heliocentric model. So if you take Keplerian orbital motion, you don't actually get any distances. You have to give it something to give the scale a value that you can ascribe any distance to. So the reason we use Huygens is because Huygens specifically came up with what is quoted as being an ingenious assumption. And that ingenious assumption is that Venus is the same size as Earth. Well, once you have that, once its transit moves past the sun, you can scale everything, so long as you know the value of Venus, right? So they'll say things like, we know because we use the transit of Venus. Well, that's useless unless you know how Venus is scaled. Well, Huygens scaled it. There you go. That's why.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then, so I was kind of like looking into that more, and like the only real sources I have is Wikipedia for it, and it does ascribe it to him on the Wikipedia astronomical unit. But if you just go directly to his write-up, it doesn't really tell you that he did that. And then if you go to the astronomical unit, it says that he actually just made an error and accidentally got it. And that the following guys, Cassini and Riker, are the ones that did it. That they were the first ones to do it. Even though it shows you on the chart, if you go to Wikipedia and type in astronomical unit, it shows Huygens doing it first. But that it was just a lucky error. But somehow right after that, then everyone started figuring it out.
Yeah, well, they just kick the can down the road. Each time, each reference will kick the can further down the road. That's what you'll find. But there isn't anything beyond an assumption that's being utilised. Same thing applies if you try and suggest that you've got a radar bounce off a black body that is the sun. Well, the scale that you're utilising, the timing that you're utilising is already predetermined by the Huygens assumption. So how long it will take in terms of their timing, when do we look for the signal to be returning, is based on the scale that's already in place with Huygens.
But they seem to want to shift the focus off of that guy for some reason. Did you know about that, or am I bringing it to your attention now?
No, about what?
That they want to that the information that I've read is trying to make it seem like he's not the one that did it, even though it seems like he broke the barrier or something.
I mean, I didn't know that specifically, but yes, because they're always doing that in terms of if you tie down any one individual, because you could say, well, where does the heliocentric model come from as you know it? Well, you can then disclaim that there's three main individuals that are ascribable to it in terms of the base premise, the scale, and the elliptical orbits. You've got three aspects with three different people that you can name, yeah? Copernicus, Kepler, and Huygens. So you can't really say, well, where does it start? Because if you just go to Copernicus, well, you don't have elliptical orbits, do you? So it's not the same system. But that notion, in terms of who can be ascribed what thing, gets kicked further down the road each time you try and ascribe it to one individual. Yeah? And you're saying when you get to Huygens, it gets kicked down the road again. Well, no, I didn't specifically know that, but it does make perfect sense because that's all that ever happens in this bullshit. It gets kicked further and further down the road, doesn't it? That can.
Yeah.
And
then I noticed,
as we all know, they'll. Sorry, I was going to say, as we all know, they'll blatantly ascribe things to people who have literally said, "Don't ascribe it to me." That's how far they're willing to go in this nonsense.
Okay, thanks for answering my question. And then my other question is similar. Why is your go-to for the so-called measurement of the Earth's radius? Why is it Al-Biruni? You guys like to speak about the most when arguing.
Oh, well, it's not necessarily Al-Biruni. Aristophanes is also one that we would utilise. It's whatever they utilise. So if they're describing it with dip, we'll run with it, right? Dip from what? The horizontal plane of reference? It's no different to Earth curve in terms of how dip for Al-Biruni functions. So it's useful to parallel if we're talking about Earth curve mathematics because it's the same standard. But I don't necessarily utilise Al-Biruni. I mean, recently we've been using Aristophanes, not because we want to, because that's just what they come with.
But isn't it because he had the closest, like, according to their whole model, that he was the first to come into the closest percentage of error?
Sure, but Al-Biruni is measuring Earth flat. You appreciate that, right?
Yeah, of course. But I'm just trying to get understanding of like their backstories, right?
Yeah, their origin is Biruni. That's going back the furthest, right? Unless you talk about shadows on the moon, but again, there's no primary sources for that. That's just bullshit that they've made up and ascribed to thousands of years ago with what is it, Aristotle? Is that right? But with actual seemingly decent sources, you can name it to about 2 or 3 men. And Al-Biruni, I don't know. They put it to us, so that's why I'm hesitant, because I wouldn't necessarily use Al-Biruni.
Okay. And then something that I've been like researching in the past, that I don't know if you guys ever thought of this, but I'm like, I searched and tried to figure out like when was it confirmed and who was the first person to confirm in their model that outer space was a vacuum? Like, wouldn't that be somebody they would tout and like promote? And there was never a guy. They don't have like a guy that was like, oh, he was the guy who proposed that the vacuum, there was a vacuum of space, and then this is the first guy who confirmed it. Like, they don't have that character. It's like, where is that guy?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, as far as I understood it, it's just a fait accompli from the Copernican model. Why you've got that system described with an open area. But it's a good question. I've never really considered it. Where did the sky vacuum come from? Or who, more importantly? Who described a system that had no containment? Beyond them having certain aspects of their narrative requiring them to travel to certain places, therefore containment would be a big problem to weave into their story. Perhaps that's how it would come to fruition more than somebody actually saying, oh, there isn't a container, there's just the sky vacuum. It's just them wanting to traverse into an area with massive distances. So upon scaling with such huge distances, maybe you could say it was... who's the guy that objected to the size and scale and said that the planets would have to be enormous? Who's that guy? Never remember his flipping name. Who's the guy who objected?
Diligence?
No, there's another dude that objected and said no. Based on this system, the size of the lights in the sky would have to be enormous. Who was that guy?
I'm saying Copernicus.
I don't know,
in
but
my head.
I've heard you mention him before. I don't know who it is.
I can never remember his name.
It wasn't Brahe, right? Tycho?
Brahe.
Right?
Yeah, it was. It was Tycho Brahe. Yes, thank you. Well done. God, that was such a brain fart. Tycho Brahe, potentially, because at the point that he's describing those aspects of mathematics, he's talking them in the narrative that they give us. Brahe's talking in a context that's reified when he objects. Does that make sense? He's saying in physical terms, in this maths, the lights as described in these maths would have to be big. Yeah? Well, that's the point that he's describing the reified version of the mathematics. Up until then, you've only got the invention of them by the person who you can ascribe to the mathematics. Yeah? But at the point in the narrative where, what's his name again? Chocolate Elf.
Brahe?
Huh? Brahe. At the point that Brahe objects, the context that he's objecting on is a reified version of the maths. So at that point in their narrative, that's where there's a sky vacuum necessitated because there's a reified distance outside of the maths, with some physicality being ascribed in objection by Biruni based on the narrative as I understand it. So there you go. That's as good as I can give you as an answer, man. You've stretched my brain to the limit with that answer. Good question.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because I always thought it was weird. They got a guy for everything, but they don't have a guy for confirm, like for that, which I guess you're gonna ascribe to that guy potentially. And then they don't have a guy for the confirmation. Like, shouldn't there be a guy that's like, congratulations, this guy is the first guy to confirm that it actually is a vacuum. They don't have that guy either.
No, most things are kind of like byproducts of stories that are obviously just so stories to begin with. And then there's a consequence that requires the web of deceit to be increased. And normally these consequences are like a fait accompli, if you will. They come as a byproduct of their story. Go ahead, Eli. Or are you just off mute? Eli.
I remember Crit saying something the other day that I didn't know. And he said that Copernicus said that the container is basically just beyond Saturn. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. That's very interesting, though.
Let's see if I can find it in this source here.
They say, okay, so more in my digging, they're saying that
Hold on. Mute,
Aristotle
please.
and
Hold on. Mute, please, Eli. Thanks. Go ahead.
so like the stories are that Aristotle and Pythagoras are the ones who like first one of the main people that drove this whole system, right? From the beginning. But then they don't have any primary writings of Pythagoras or Aristotle. And then it's just Aristotle himself quoting Pythagoras. And then they don't have writings of Aristotle. They have Aristotle's students pushing it. So it's like all this third hand, like we don't even know if these guys even actually believed any of this at all. And then the translations of the students that wrote all these things are in the church. They're in the Vatican Library, and you just have to trust that the translators had the primary sources and translated them properly. It's like it's all like hearsay nonsense.
I think the book is eventually going to be. Sorry.
I'm just reading how ridiculous it is because I'm looking in the source where he says the thing about Saturn. But as I'm reading, it says he saw the strengths in the Copernican system, but he was worried about his drawbacks. its drawbacks, most importantly, the problem of parallax, which was discussed before. If the Earth moves in a big circle, that implies that we are looking at the heavens from different points of view in the course of a year. This should be detectable when we study the positions of the stars. The angles between them should shrink and grow as we move around the sun because our distance from any particular star configuration would change radically in the course of a year. But this doesn't happen. The night sky is immutable. As far as 17th century astronomers could detect, the constellations all look exactly the same throughout the year, just as if we never move an inch. Tycho Brahe was the most exacting astronomical observer in the pre-telescope era, but even he, with his very advanced and precise observations, could find no parallactic effect. To maintain the Earth's motion in spite of this, it is therefore necessary to postulate, as Copernicus does, the fixed stars are at an immense height away. The diameter of the Earth's orbit is so small in relation to such an astronomical distance that our feeble little motion is all but tantamount to standing still. Doesn't the sun move like, I don't know how many millions of miles like a day, though?
Wow, that's what you just read. That's freaking
That's BS.
Yeah, did they prove that?
Oh, it's BS.
I mean, but you get what I'm saying. If their whole point is, well, the Earth makes like little tiny circles as opposed to these far stars. How long have we been looking at these stars, right? Like these constellations, and how far does the sun move? Like, what are we talking? It's ridiculous, right? For the
I also got something from him
is.
that says he devoted himself to the creation of ever more accurate instruments of measurement over the next 15 years.
Go ahead, Brian.
It is ridiculous. Did you mute a second, Eamon? It is ridiculous.
Ignore Neil's measurements.
It is ridiculous, right? Based on what Eli is saying, because it's a constantly changing system. So there's no way things can stay equal at all times, regardless of any amount of distance they want to say. But you were saying there, Eli, Copernicus came back at Brahe. That'd be impossible because Brahe and Kepler existed at the same time, because Kepler was like an understudy or assistant to Brahe. But Copernicus was way before them. So how could Copernicus be replying to Brahe? And he was dead for, I don't know, whatever amount of time prior to that. You know what I mean? So if it's Copernicus that they're writing is replying to Brahe, they're completely full of it. The whole thing, you can't trust any part of their story. It's all BS. Every part of it is BS. Because they're trying to create a situation that's impossible to create, because it's the complete opposite from reality. And even treating the stars like or the celestial bodies like they're physical objects of matter, and that they will behave a certain way, is ridiculous. Because we have no evidence of any of that. They just, more to the point, we do have evidence. We have evidence they don't behave in a terrestrial manner. So what we would expect between the kind of effect between us looking at mountains in the distance and how that effect would happen, we could never expect to see that with the celestial bodies, because they're not mountains. They don't behave like that. So the whole thing is just a load of bullshitters. That's all it is, making stuff up. Just like all the people we deal with. Thanks, Taylor.
So it's like a just so story.
Let me just ask Brian something. I let you in just as I answered that guy's question, and I hoped that you heard the answer that I gave, because it was my best guess, as you could probably tell. So the guy was asking, where did the vacuum come to fruition? How did this come to be? Who invented it? And I'm like, I don't know. The only time I can discern that in the narrative they would have suggested that they have a sky vacuum is by Brahe objecting to the size of the lights. Now, at that point in the narrative, it becomes a reification on behalf of Brahe in his objection. Therefore, that's when a sky vacuum's highlighted. But that was my best answer. I'm assuming you have a better one, Brian, or you'll agree with me, one or the other.
Well, what you said, I understand you going to that for some historical reference, but that doesn't really have anything to do with whether it's a vacuum or not. The vacuum part would be more connected to a belief in gravity, possibly, but that didn't exist at that time. So you can't even look at that. All you could say is that someone goes up mountains and realizes it's harder to breathe. And objects, you know what I mean? It's like there's less air up there. So that was someone just pre-assuming that it continues to be less and less and less and less and less air. And before you know it, there's no air. That's basically, that's like there isn't anybody. Like
but
there's
that's
nobody.
But that's only necessitated.
To it.
But that's only necessitated by the description from Copernicus, Kepler, Huygens, and then the objection from Brahe. At which point you can say, okay, in the description, there's a necessity. It's a fait accompli, I said earlier, for there to be an area at all because of those descriptions.
You could be correct, like I mean, but you could be correct, but you're trying to give a historical standard that, like, if there's no mention of a vacuum historically by these people,
right?
Then and there's no first person who determined it has to be a vacuum,
right?
All you could say is that someone was bullshitting other people, saying, "Well, you go up to a mountain and the air gets less, so it must just continue on that way into this big massive." You know what I mean? I mean, that story is just as good as what you're saying, and I don't mean to put down what you're saying. I'm just saying you can't give a historical standard. Nobody ever proved there was a vacuum because it's not.
It's almost like asking who's the first person to apologise for that little problem.
Yeah, exactly. But I understood the questions from the guy, from the man in Discord. I know his voice, actually. He was saying, where's the guy for this and the guy for that? They don't have a guy for either of those things.
I know about that because I was trying to do that type of research when I first got into this too. And it was funny because some things they got a guy, some things they don't got a guy. Then at some point in this, you realize that their little paradigm is just a hodgepodge of crazy stories. Some ascribe to some people, some ascribe to people who don't even want to be ascribed to it. You know what I mean? It's just nonsense.
So wait, they don't have a guy for the vacuum of space?
Earth curve, they've got a guy. Vacuum of space, they don't have a guy. Orbits, they've got a guy.
Well, it's true. They got a guy for axial rotation, right?
Yeah, they got a guy for axial rotation, orbit.
I don't remember, but we do have him. I looked it up, and there is a guy for that. But they don't got a guy for the vacuum of space.
Kepler is the orbit guy. After supposedly Copernicus, but it took, I don't know what length of time between Copernicus and Kepler before they got to their obliques, their offset elliptical orbit. But Kepler gave them the mathematics for the orbit that would match the Earth going as a globe going around the sun, and that's where all their other orbits come from. Because Kepler had to make that an orbit of an offset elliptical orbit. That's the only way he could make what we see the sun do in the sky work mathematically if we were on a globe going around it while it stays stationary.
But they've kicked that story, just before you carry on, they've kicked that story even further back in history, haven't they? Is it Aristotle? Did I get that part of the...
Nah, but that's nonsense. Aristotle, even Adam, I think it was only last year or something, he looked at what they were trying to claim by Aristotle, and Aristotle doesn't say anything like that.
I know that. I get that. I also disclaim that when I said it. But in terms of a narrative that has been presented to us, there's this shadows on the moon with an inference of orbital motion before it existed. And am I right in the ascribing of, is it Aristotle? Who is it? I can't remember the person that in the bullshit stories being ascribed to this.
I can't remember. I don't know.
It's the shadows on the moon story, right?
Another made-up story.
Yeah, shadows on the moon. Shadows on the moon, Earth being a ball. That's that story. I just can't remember it's ascribed to 3,000 years ago or whatever it is.
I don't know. I can't. I'd only be bullshitting myself if I tried to come up with a story. I mean, who it was.
That was. Didn't you say his name already?
Aristotle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll attribute something to somebody historically, and it'll be pointed out that that person didn't say that thing, and they go, "Oh, it must have been someone else." You know what I mean? Oh, it was this other guy that was around at the same time, and you know what I mean? It's like if you look into what Aristotle actually wrote, there's nothing in there to support their claims. Actually, according to Adam, because Adam will read these things. According to what Adam stated, it actually supported a flat stationary plane and not a rotating globe.
Yeah, they'll just revert. They'll just resort to, I don't know what you would call it, positive bigotry. Because if they can't find a person, they'll just say the whole group of people did it. You know, they did it.
So
I never heard
so
of
I
this
put
guy.
it in.
There you go.
So, sorry, man. So I put it in one of these AI things real quick. The question was, who discovered the vacuum of space? Answer: the concept of a vacuum in space has evolved over time. Ancient Greek philosophers like Democritus and Epicurus speculated about the existence of a void or vacuum. However, the scientific understanding of space as a vacuum was significantly advanced by the work of scientists in the 17th century. Evangelista Torricelli, an Italian physicist and mathematician, is often credited with creating the first artificial vacuum in 1643 with his invention of the barometer. Later, Sir Isaac Newton's work on the laws of motion and gravitation further supported the idea of space being a vacuum. So, while no single person can be credited with discovering the vacuum of space, the contributions of Evangelista Torricelli and Isaac Newton were crucial in developing the modern understanding of it. End of citation.
So Brian was the closest.
Pretty much.
Yeah. What a lot of rubbish.
Yeah, but you were the closest with the nonsense, Brian.
Yeah.
In summary, we all had a guess, and you were the closest because you essentially said that it was tied specifically to gravity, and there it is. So you were the closest.
I got some more nonsense about axial rotation if you want to know. It says this guy was from 499 CE, the Indian astronomer. I don't even know how to say his name. Arabiata suggested that the spherical Earth rotates about its axis daily and that the apparent movement of the stars is relative motion caused by the rotation of the Earth. Sorry about my brother.
It's just more vague, nowhere, nothingness. Some guy who might have had relevance in Indian history supposedly said this thing. It's just the hijacking of famous historical figures and making up people. Like Eratosthenes, you know what I mean? I use that story against them, but there's no evidence that the guy existed. He didn't turn up in school books till the late 70s.
This is the problem, isn't it? Unless they bring it up, in which case, fine, we'll use it. But we can't use it. It's like, yeah, give me a primary source evidence for any of these people.
Yeah, it's as you would say, it's a crap standard. You know what I mean? Some guy years ago said something, right? And this guy who supposedly said it was a great person, right? Okay. And how does that make it true? Well, it doesn't really, but we know it's true because this kind of rubbish. So you don't even, see no proof for any of this then. It's just you're leaning on some guy who existed 90 million years ago. Yeah, that's all it is. It's an appeal to authority in a lot of ways, isn't it? When they appeal to someone like Pythagoras or Eratosthenes, whether he existed or not, he's historically claimed to be an authority. Often they'd even try and hijack Archimedes when he actually debunks them, but. It's and of course, who did they lean on more than anyone is Newton and Kepler. They lean on them constantly. It's like, but really they didn't. What did they prove? Heliocentric? Nothing.
This is weird. Listen to this. How did people discover that Earth is tilted 24 degrees on its axis? It says all you need to rough it out is measurements of the sun angles during various times of year and grasp on geometry.
All you need is a measurement of a flat Earth and you'll know. how tilted the ball is.
Me and Refracted, we had it out last week. I don't know if we got to the very nub of it, but we had it out last week and we ended up having an argument. I called him a liar at one point because I was pointing out that in Newton's original Principia Mathematica, written in Latin, right, because that was the language that was most known at the time. More people, especially educated people, spoke Latin, but Latin was the most known language at the time. That in that Principia Mathematica, he only uses the term viz, V-I-Z, which is the Latin term for force, when he's referring to his laws of motion. When he refers to gravity, he calls it a centripetal force, which is not a force, it's a pseudo force. He does refer to centripetal force as a description to the reader as being a bit like magnetism, but centripetal force is not a force. So he's not even likening gravity to magnetism. He's only likening centripetal force to magnetism, as a way of describing it. When he talks about gravity, he's talking about just centripetal force, which is not a force. It's a pseudo force. Like Coriolis is not a force. So you're basically saying gravity is akin to Coriolis. If you, I don't mean that, but you know what I mean. It's the same thing because it's another pseudo force. The point being is that I couldn't find anywhere, and there was nowhere that John was looking in. He was straining his eyes with really small text trying to argue with me and point stuff out. But there was just nowhere where you could find Newton saying there's this force of gravity attracting your things together in his original Principia. Because I don't trust anything that comes after that. Oh, this is the English version. That was bad. And he okayed it. There's the tick. There's a special stamp of approval. It's like, I don't trust any rubbish that comes after that. Because I've heard supposed quotes from Einstein that were translated into English. And Einstein was talking about gravitational fields and all this other rubbish. And he may have said it as a descriptor to people who don't know any better, but there's no gravitational fields in general relativity because there can't be. You know what I mean? So it's like they'll take something that someone wrote or said, they'll then change it if they have to into a different language. Or then over time, the next publication comes out, and the next publication, and the next publication. And there are all these little edits going on. You go back to the original, and it doesn't say any of the rubbish that's in the most up-to-date one.
So you're saying they shoehorn it in?
Well, I can't find where Isaac Newton started claiming gravity was a force of attraction between these claimed masses. I can find a letter where he's writing a letter to a guy called Dr. Richard Bentley, who was I think he was a philosopher of his time, asking him or saying to him, please do not ascribe innate gravity to me. In other words, other people might have been going on with a lot of horse manure at the time, but he was saying, don't ascribe this to me. The idea that something can do blah, 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 blah makes absolutely no sense. You know what I mean? He was saying, what was the term he used?
Such an absurdity.
Yes.
That any person with philosophical capabilities of thinking should engage in it. That's paraphrased, obviously.
Yeah, because that was
like,
that was where, any man with something faculty of thought, isn't it? A faculty of thinking, an astute faculty of thinking or something. The way he put it was excellent. In other words, if you believe this, you're an idiot. That's basically what he was saying. Yet supposedly that was his main thing in his Principia Mathematica. The big force.
You know what's funny about that? What's funny about that is yesterday QE was doing something on evolution and whatever that is. And like even Darwin himself had a quote where he kind of said the same thing about his own little theory in heavy quotes, right? And he even used the same word, in absurdity. Or no, he said absurd.
Well, because Darwin is famous for saying, this is one of these things. You know the way ballers will accuse people, like a man was accusing Christians of coal mining, right, incorrectly, in his presentation that QE was covering. But you know, the borders will accuse people of quote mining or cherry picking, whatever rubbish. That's what they do. It's not. What they do is they don't disclose the quotes that don't suit them. So Charles Darwin did state that if evidence was shown that what he's putting forth is wrong, then that's wrong. But so any evidence, and he kind of was specific about the evidence, I think, as well. And this particular evidence was put forth. And he was like, okay, then, kind of thing. So they just took what Charles Darwin was putting forth and they ran with it and changed it over time. Just like they changed Isaac Newton. Because whatever Isaac Newton said got changed from what he actually said. And then we got to the Cavendish, Reverend Jean Michel, then Cavendish era. Then we get to the Charles Vernon boys, and then we get to Einstein, where the whole lot is thrown out the window. But yet they're still teaching it in schools. But it's not what Isaac Newton said. They're teaching their version of it in schools, their numpty religious version of it in schools. And the same is with Charles Darwin. You know what I mean? He was. I saw the quotes. I might have missed that yesterday because I was away from the call for about 45 minutes or more. So I might have missed it if Kiwi showed it. But there is a quote I saw from Charles Darwin saying, "Well, if this is not shown to happen, or this other thing is shown to happen, then the whole thing goes out the window." And it was, but they never talk about that part. But the other thing that's very relatable between Darwin and Newton is what they call Newton's force of gravity, right? The idea of gravity, not as a force, just the idea of this gravitational thing. This didn't start with him. It started with Kepler, not Newton. Newton took the idea. Newton got inspired by Kepler's writing, and Kepler suggesting that there was something going on. Right? I don't have his quote, so I can't give it to you. But it was Kepler that it began with. And when it comes to Darwin, Jerome Campanella was good for something. But in the past year, I found out from Jerome Campanella something I didn't know. That it wasn't Darwin that the whole natural selection came from. It was Sir Alfred Russel Wallace, who is the guy who was up against who? He was up against what's his name in the Bedford Levels? What's his name? The famous flat earther. Who's the Bedford Levels? Samuel Rowbotham. Rowbotham, yeah. And they don't want to ever connect. They never want to connect their natural selection to that situation. Because if people look into that situation, they will see that what they're told about it, what's written on Wiki, was not the finality. The finality was Rowbotham debunking Alfred Russel Wallace. He debunked him with what I was showing years ago and calling optical drop. He debunked him with perspective, and it was accepted. Right? Because your man Alfred Russel Wallace was trying to add in 7/6R into the situation. Like, get the fuck out of here. Sorry, Nathan. Get the F out of here with that rubbish. But yeah, Alfred Russel Wallace. That's where that came from. So the sources are not Newton and what's his name, Darwin at all. The original postulations are not theirs at all. It was Kepler and Alfred Russel Wallace.
The globe paradigm is like a comic book, right? It's like somebody creates it, somebody's got a cool idea, creates it, and then other people start writing the story, and they add their own little flavor to it, right? And then as time goes by, there's little parts of the story that's come from a bunch of guys here, a bunch of guys over there, and now you have the story. And then when you read that comic book, you think, oh, this all came from that one origin. When no, it's actually an amalgamation of a bunch of crap all at the same time.
Yeah, and they have superheroes. They have superheroes that are involved in it. Like they have their own superheroes now, but the superheroes from the past. Like they make Newton into a superhero, Kepler into a superhero, Copernicus, Einstein. All these people are made into superheroes. But the people who went against them, they're the bad guys, like Robotham. Robotham is Megatron, or whatever. So whoever went against them, or whoever spoke out against them, they're the bad guys. They're the bad people, not the good superheroes. And while they're completely misrepresenting the superheroes, because they're liars who can't tell the truth. Our opposition. I'm sorry, they are. 99% at least of them are incapable of truth. They're incapable of accepting fact, dealing with reality, and dealing with truth. And really ain't truth. They just are. There's no way around it. There's 10 years of evidence of them being incapable of truth. Prove me wrong. The way to prove me wrong is that you'll actually come up with them being honest. Best of luck with that. I reckon if you told these people that Copernicus found how to fly with a special cape, that they'd start promoting it.
Only if the cape was made out of gravity fabric.
An anti-gravity cape.
Anti-gravity cape.
Some credit photos. Unbelievable. Looks like I killed the conversation, eh?
Is Nathan back from getting coffee?
Yeah, coffee, that makes sense.
Moment of silence for the ball Todd. Yeah, I'd say the next thing we're shooting for is when the book hits the rack. We're going places, boys. And I mean, we're going places. I mean,
we're going to put somebody on a rack. Is that what we're doing now?
Yeah, when the book hits the shelves, Or it don't even hit shelves anymore, right? It's all modern technology. What is it? Go on the internet and that's it? Is there any more books anymore? Is there any more Barnes and Nobles?
I'm glad I got the conversation going there from my guys' talk. They don't got a guy for this, they got a guy for that. For when I was looking back at more stuff like that, for Aristotle, okay, if you use Chat GPT or whatever AI, and you're like, oh, how do they know that the Earth was a sphere, so-called? It'll put you into you'll get into a Chat GPT loop where it starts talking about Pythagoras and Aristotle knew it was a ball because the sun would go behind the Earth and during a solar eclipse, and then that the shadow of the Earth was casting a circle onto the moon. And you're like, okay, well, how do they know that the sun was behind the Earth? And then it just starts going into this loop where you're just telling it like they don't know. Like, how do they know? And it's like, well, they always knew that, and it just keeps going in a circle. I don't know if you guys have fun with the AIs like that, but you'll get these weird answers where it just goes in a circular conversation, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's they always knew fallacy. So there's no origin. There's no like they just always knew this. Like nothing was ever proven. They just know it. It's just you're born knowing this, and you just forget it. That's what they want you. You know, flat earthers just forgot it. That's what they want you to believe.
Yeah, but Brian, it had to stem from them looking up and seeing this round sun and the round moon. That's what it had to originate from that. Somebody had to come up with the idea that, well, this is what we must be on then.
It originated with lawyers and it's postulated by idiots, Neil. Or promoted by idiots. That's the truth about the heliocentric paradigm.
Yeah, but even
that's what will happen if you talk
geocentric.
to someone who believes in if someone believes in a globe Earth now, like just a regular person. If you start talking to them, they'll be like, "Oh, well, the moon and all the planets are spheres." And I'm like, "How do you know that? You can just see like a circle of them." And for the stars, it's just like a bunch of tight globular lines moving together. Like you can't even tell what they are. But the planet Saturn appears to be like a circle with a ring around it, but you're not actually. You don't know if it's a three-dimensional object, and then they just like throw up their hands.
Well, they have special observatories that the average person is not allowed to go near. And in these special observatories, there's special people who tell you all about what your reality is.
Yeah, I understand that, Brian, but my son has really got some good shots of the moon. He's got this really cool set of binoculars, and he took pictures of it with his phone through the binoculars. And I mean, you see a lot of stuff on there. It really actually does appear like it's spherical. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying what I see.
I agree. The moon does look that way. Out of all of them, the moon is the one that does really look that way. But the problem is you can't. Has anyone actually gone there and, you know what I mean, supported this? No,
you can't validate it. You're right. It's just something we see with our eyes, and it certainly does look like it.
Exactly. If you remove the moon out of the equation, the next best, let's say, argument you'd have is the sun. You know what I mean? And then what? What have we got after that? Maybe some dodgy picture of Saturn. You know what I mean? There's no evidence. And even if they are was spheres, what has that got to do with anything? It's a connection between us and the stars that they're constantly trying to make that isn't there. That's what it is. As far as, when I say us, I'm talking about the terra firma Earth.
Well, what they're doing now is I heard Trump and Elon, they were interviewed yesterday by Hannity, and Elon is going to rescue the astronauts that have been stranded in space for 300 days or something. They were only supposed to be up there 8 days.
They're not needed. They're not.
But listen to the story. They're going to rescue them, and he's going to Mars.
Come on, none of that is happening. We know none of that is happening.
Yeah, but they put it out there, so it keeps it alive, keeps it real, keeps it relevant. Yeah, he's going to Mars. He said, "Yes, I will be going to Mars. I just don't want to go there on impact." You know. So, listen, they're still going with this story.
I want to ask a question to the guys on the panel. Is there any value in even entertaining any models at all? Because I know that we don't live on the model and the model's not the terrain, but if someone presents a model and it seems to like have some validity to it, is it something that you should consider or keep in your consciousness, or is it something that I should just cast aside and not worry about?
Depends how useful it is.
For instance,
well, the specific model, The specific model I keep getting pushed to is I don't know if you guys have heard Ronnie and Jason. They have this channel where it's called like Awake Souls or something like that. I'm not sure. There's like a whole bunch of
Ronnie
channels.
and Jason are.
Yeah, so they have this virtual model where the sun, like the luminaries they're not physical. You can't apply physics to them, and everything else is a stereographic model. And I'm like, okay, well, like I guess it kind of makes sense, but if the skies are not physical, couldn't the flatness of the Earth be any model you wanted, and it could just render whenever you wanted it to? Like, it doesn't really matter what the model is at that point if the sky is virtual. So I was just wanting to hear Nathan's thoughts on that and the other guys too.
How do they validate that?
Well,
See what Nathan says.
Go on, Brian. You go first.
Are you sure? All right. Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I would say that it can mathematically it could all be very nice, but unless it absolutely adheres to reality, it's no good. And what I say that is, we don't know what the celestial bodies are. To make a model, if you want to call it that, of them. So how can we model out something we don't know about? You can only make a model based off of angles to them. And that's it, if you want to even call that a model. Do you know what I mean? As part of an overall model of reality. I don't know how you can do it. So where is your model? It's like, it's not possible to make a model if we don't know what these things are. How can I make a model and include the moon when me and Neil were just talking? It looks like a sphere, but I have no evidence that it physically actually is a sphere. I don't know what it is. I don't know how any of these things do what they do, what they're comprised of, how they work, so I can't model. It's no more than I can model the internal workings of, I don't know, the internal workings of, I'm just thinking of something. I kind of do know a lot of things. I look for something that I have not looked into. So the internal workings of something, of how a petrol pump maybe work. Well, I could probably work that out. But something I don't know about. Like, if I don't know about it, how can I work out the internal workings of it? I have to know about it before I can model, add it in as part of a model, don't I? If I don't know about it, then models just not happening. That's my answer.
Does it have a use? That's my question, as opposed to giving you an answer to whether or not it's useful. Ask them if it's useful. In other words, okay, right, here's your model, as you call it. Show me what it can do. That's to say, what practical purpose does it serve? Does it have a use? If it has a use, then I'll pay it credence. If it doesn't, then who cares?
Aren't model reification fallacies?
Only if you consider them to be the world. The map is not the terrain.
Well, the most useful model is me pulling up my iPhone and driving around town on my map. Like, that's the most useful model.
That's a map.
Yeah, but if you zoom it out, it's like if you zoom all the way out, it's the whole Earth, right? Like a Mercator. Mercator seems to be the best map or model or whatever. So you could technically, I guess, live on the Mercator map.
Not at all. That's a terrible map. When you draw a straight line on that map, the map, if you followed that line straight, it would actually be curving, and vice versa. So to plot a straight path, you have to draw a curved line on the map. It's ludicrous. They've turned circles into squares. You appreciate that the Mercator is a square grid system, right? But the system that's given them the grid is concentric circles.
Yeah, but that's the one I use. Like, what is the one that's in our iPhone? What is that? Like, that's a map, right? But isn't it a model as well? Because that's the most useful. I use it all the time.
We haven't got one.
The most useful.
So for minimum, the last 300 years, the public have been led to believe that they're on a ball. And the process that the cartographers have taken, the methodology, is to project balls onto flat maps. And we've got hundreds of them. So you're like, which one's right? None of them. They're all. There's only reason we've got loads of them is to hide the fact that they're not representative of the ground. They're ball projections. All of them. All of the modern maps, with the exception of things like Ordnance Survey, which are tiny, tiny little maps by comparison to a world map. Just go ask Reggie or Ronnie or whatever his name is, what does this do? As in, what practical use can you put it to? Because even with all its faults, you can still find practical use for the Mercator. It does have a useful purpose, right? But if there is no useful purpose to their model, as they're calling it, then it's like, well, why do I care?
All of these uses, though, are for cosmology, not for anything useful. Well, other than to imagine where you live, where you come from. I mean, because I was going to read this earlier. 1 second, I should still have, I do still have it pulled up. Tycho therefore devised a system of his own. In this system, the Earth remained the center of the universe while the planets orbit the sun. So it's a hybrid of Ptolemy and Copernicus, a halfway house that takes the best of both worlds. This solves the problem of parallax. Since the Earth is not moving, there shouldn't be any parallax. So that's that problem solved. You can put the sphere of the fixed stars just beyond Saturn, like Ptolemy did. That's how people used to view the stars, as a bunch of specks of shiny glitter glued onto the inside wall of a big ball. We can't judge depth or distance or heavenly objects by eye anyway, so we might as well imagine everything taking place on a single surface like that. Look at what they said. We can't judge depth or distance of heavenly objects by eye anyway. That's it. That's exactly, I mean, other than the assumption that Venus is the same size as Earth, and Earth has a radius of 3,959 miles, which it doesn't, because the black swan kills that. It's all just hocus pocus.
I'm going to round out with that. Another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.